And we are live for week one. What a time to be alive. Week one of the 2025 NFL season has already started, but it is officially the best day of the week. Football Sundays are back, and I could not be more excited for this live stream today. Live streaming today all the way from Spain, 6 hours ahead here for a wedding. Shout out Ray and Jared for that. And we're starting the live early today. We're starting the live, I think around 10 minutes early. As always on this live stream, we are going to go game by game to kick off the live. I'll talk through all my thoughts for the games, things I'll be watching closely in these games, must starts and must benches in these games. And then I will open it up to the Draftkings lineup. Then I will get to some free player props. And then we will grind through hundreds of start sit questions on this live. What's up from Italy? Let's go. Love to see that. And shout out to everyone who's already in the live very early in the day in most places in the world. Could not be more excited today for week one. Year 5 for me, my 5th consecutive year going live every single Sunday morning, Really grateful for you all, especially the people already in the live. Shout out to you. I want to shout out the OGs. And I realize we haven't really defined OG, and I think there's different spectrums of the OGs. So I want to just take a moment. Let's define what OG means. I think anyone who has been here multiple years, you're a true OG. If you are in the live right now and you're joining at the very beginning of the live, I also count that as an OG. If you're a Walter Pick subscriber, I think that counts. Shout out to all the Walter Pick subscribers as well. The number one way you could possibly support me and the entire Walter Picks brand is subscribing in the app. Well worth the subscription cost. There's a 7-day free trial going on right now. And then also shout out to the brand new viewers. Man, super grateful to get to call this a part of my job and be on year 5 of these live streams. All right, so we are going to go game by game to kick off the live before we get into. Let's go. Shout out to the OGs already in the chat. We could not be more back. It is one of the best days of the year. It really is one of the best days of the year. I 100% agree. I woke up this morning, no alarm clock needed, man. No alarm clock needed on the first Sunday morning of the season. Could not be more back. Could not be more back. And I got to pace myself, guys. I got to pace myself because this is probably going to be a 4-hour live stream. So I got to pace myself. I got coffee number 3 here. But we couldn't be more locked in. All right, I want to start going through the games. And we're going to start with an exciting one here. The Cardinals versus the Saints. This game, the spread in this game, 6.5-point favorites for the Arizona Cardinals in this game. This is my survivor pool pick of the week. I am in one survivor pool. I will be giving out a survivor pick each week. And for me, it's got to be the Arizona Cardinals today. And it has a lot more to do with the Saints than the Arizona Cardinals. This has to be, for the Saints, the worst quarterback situation in the NFL. They have Spencer Rattler starting today over Tyler Shuck, which was a battle all preseason. We saw Spencer Rattler last season, and it did not look good. And one of my main questions in this game, and I think really the main thing to watch for the Saints, is can Kellen Moore scheme around this awful quarterback situation? You can only scheme around a bad QB situation so much. We saw some offenses succeed around somewhat sketchy QB play last year. I think the Vikings stand out probably the most. But the only way the Saints can really surprise people is if they can scheme around the worst quarterback situation in the NFL. And I feel the safest, as sketchy as it is to ride with Kyler in your survivor pools, this is going to be the safest week to pick them. And I am most confident about how bad the QB situation is for the Saints. We'll talk about some of the other survivor pool potential picks later in the live. There's really only one must-start player on the Saints, though, today in fantasy, in PPR leagues, especially, and that's Alvin Kamara, who, if you drafted Like you're really hoping he starts like he started last year and just can hold on a little bit longer than he did last season. Not a single game over 20 points for Alvin Kamara since week 9 of last season, but really started the season extremely hot. Should be getting at least 5 catches in most games. I don't know what his receptions line is at. It's probably 3.5 or 4.5, wide receiver type lines for Alvin Kamara in the receiving game. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, really not must starts. I think Olave's okay. I think Rashid Shaheed has a ceiling, but not guys you should feel great starting here in week 1. And my best ball teams are praying for Juwan Johnson. I got a lot of dusty tight end, 3 tight end builds in best ball, and Juwan Johnson's on a whole lot of them. On to the Cardinals side of this game, I think two of the bigger questions here is Marvin Harrison Jr. going to take a year 2 leap? I got this question for a lot of guys across the league today as we go through these games. Nothing really changed for the Cardinals across all teams. The Arizona Cardinals probably had the least change from last season. I still think we can kind of expect a year 2 leap from Marvin Harrison Jr. though. And I think last season goes a little underappreciated because the expectations were just insanely high. Too high for Marvin Harrison Jr. were the expectations last year. He was literally drafted in the first round of fantasy football drafts, goes out, posts a touchdown rate over 12%, and just was inconsistent. Had only 1 catch for 4 yards in the opening game last year, then ripped off 3 games over 15 points. He showed an ability to be an elite touchdown scorer, though. I like that he added the muscle this offseason, and I really think he has the potential to be one of the elite wide receivers in the NFL still. So I'm in on Marvin Harrison Jr., and I'm starting him here in week 1. Trey McBride had the best usage among all tight ends last season. The guy just needs to find the end zone, and he will be the tight end 1 in fantasy football. And then the last question I have on this team is, what is the Trey Benson role this season? Because there's been a lot of talk that it might be more of a 1A, 1B situation with James Conner and Trey Benson. Last year, really just an A. And then honestly, I don't think there even was a B. And then it was C. And Trey Benson was also last season coming off the field on passing downs for Amari DiMercato. Not a great sign for Trey Benson, who was a 2nd-round pick just a year ago. So I do think there's a ceiling here for Benson, but he's got to show some ability in the passing game. I don't think he's going to have that much bigger of a role. James Conner projects as a top 10 running back left on this week. And yeah, I got my must starts, my must benches up on the TikTok live. I'm going game by game right now. I will get to every single game. And let me pull up the rankings for those of you on the YouTube live. If you're already tuned into the YouTube live, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm telling you, it helps me out way more than you could possibly realize. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button. We're going to go through every single game, every single player on this live. I got rankings for every position here as well. Let me pull up the QB rankings here to start. All right, I think that covers it for the Saints and Cardinals. And again, I feel pretty good about the Cardinals here getting a win out of the gates and being the best survivor pool pick of the week. They aren't the biggest favorites of the week, but I'll get to why I'm a little bit more scared about the other popular survivor pool picks this week. All right, on to the next game. We got a really big opening window here of games. We're going to go through all of them in order of when the games will be played here. So up next, the Dolphins and the Colts. Tyreek Hill, he landed on my do not draft list this year. I think there is not a player with a wider range of outcomes this NFL season than Tyreek Hill. It wouldn't surprise me if we see an Antonio Brown-like flame out for Tyreek Hill this year, and he literally is not even playing by the end. And it also would not shock me if we see Tyreek Hill finish as a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy football. Literally 2 years ago, he was the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football in basically the same situation he's in now, just 2 years younger. 23.7 points per game for Tyreek Hill just 2 seasons ago, but he's been dealing with an oblique injury. He's barely practiced all preseason. No, not in the injury report, though, here in week 1. He says publicly he wanted out at the end of last season. That didn't sit well with a huge portion of the organization. He's not a captain for the first time. He's still probably the fastest player in the NFL. I don't think that can be debated. But what is the roles for Tyreek and Jalen Waddle? I have drafted a ton of Jalen Waddle. I think both these guys really need to be started here. In week 1, both project as top 22 receivers. And I'm definitely curious to see, is Jalen Waddle actually the wide receiver 1 on this team? Or is it still Tyreek Hill? And then for Achane, is he 100%? We're projecting him with really no injury docs right now. Pull up the running back ranks here on both live streams as I talk through Achane. But he projects extremely, extremely well. There's no Jonnu Smith on this team anymore. Without Jonnu Smith on the field last year, it was Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane that benefited the most when Jonnu Smith was not on the field, and it makes a lot of sense. These are the guys getting the underneath targets. Teams are playing a ton of too high safety against Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins, and that's why Jonnu Smith absolutely smashed last season. Darren Waller's not even active for this game. Guys, Julian Hill is the starting tight end for the Dolphins, and I don't want to underrate how big of a deal this Jonnu Smith trade really was. I think it got a lot of attention right when it happened, and people sort of forgot a little bit. This guy got almost 20% of the targets for the team last year, and they do not have a real tight end on the team anymore. 12.7 points per game from Jonnu have vanished from the Dolphins, and I think that is going to lead to a much higher floor and ceiling for both Waddle and Achane. All these guys really have to be started, though. And then I think one of the more underrated players in fantasy, he's on waivers in most leagues, is Tua. We were just looking at Tyreek 2 years ago. Well, 2 years ago, Tua led the NFL in passing yards. I think he's still probably he's probably properly rated in fantasy, even in this season where he led the NFL in passing yards. He finished QB 19 in points per game. I mean, just really not that exciting. No rushing ceiling, obviously, at all for Tua. But I think an underrated NFL quarterback as it stands. Ollie Gordon, what's his role for the Dolphins? If Achane's not 100%, we know Jalen Wright's injured. So Ollie Gordon's the running back too, rookie running back for the Dolphins. I think he's going to be in that Mostert role. Definitely has a pretty good chance to get the goal line role here for the Dolphins. Yeah, Achane in a PPR league could easily finish as the running back one any given week. The Dolphins in this game, I believe, are 3.5 point favorites. Yeah, they're 1.5 point underdogs here in Indianapolis. Wow. 1.5 point underdogs. A lot of disrespect for the Dolphins, who are not expected to have a good defense, which makes these Colts players startable here in week one. Let's jump to the tight end ranks here as we talk through this Colts offense. I definitely think Tyler Warren is an instant must start. Basically, if you don't have Kittle, Bowers, McBride, Andrews, or Njoku, you're starting Warren. I'm starting Tyler Warren over TJ Hawkinson. I'm starting Tyler Warren over Sam Laporta, over Tucker Kraft, over Brenton Strange, who I'll talk a lot about on the live stream today. I'm starting Tyler Warren over all those guys. I'm starting him over Colston Loveland, who he projects much better than. He was picked a couple picks after Colston Loveland in the NFL draft. Tyler Warren is probably the odds-on favorite to lead this team in targets and catches today. And if it's not Tyler Warren, it's probably going to be Josh Downs, one of the more underappreciated receivers in the NFL. Daniel Jones starting at QB. We might see Josh Downs become just a PPR cheat code, a complete cheat code in PPR leagues. If he can get that Wan'Dale role, and I think he's a much better slot receiver than Wan'Dale Robinson. We saw Wan'Dale Robinson get peppered with targets out of the slot from Daniel Jones. I think that might be the floor here for Josh Downs with Daniel Jones starting. All that being said, for the Colts, though, really 1.5 point favorites with Daniel Jones starting at QB, I think is a little bit too much respect to Daniel Jones. And as much as I agree that Daniel Jones starting at QB is really a positive thing for all the receivers and running backs on this team for fantasy, Downs, Pittman, Tyler Warren, Jonathan Taylor, I all think benefit from Daniel Jones starting at QB. But when you say that statement back, man, I mean, that does say a lot about how bad the situation was to begin with. That Daniel Jones is an upgrade for these guys. I think there's more systemic risk here with the quarterback situation for the Colts than people are giving credit to. But yeah, Tyler Warren still an instant must start, and not a good sign, man, for Anthony Richardson that he got beat out by Daniel Jones. I also think that just speaks volumes to his potential future in the NFL. Another guy, though, very, very good option for fantasy. And Daniel Jones is kind of a sneaky fantasy option as well, because he does have rushing potential. Not a guy I really want to start, though, here in week one. I probably would start some of the guys that got ranked over him here in rank one, but he does in week one, but he does project decently because of that rushing. We got Pittman projected just ahead of Downs. I think Downs' floor is higher than Michael Pittman. Pittman's ceiling to score a touchdown is likely higher, though. So that's why they project close. If I had to make this call, though, I honestly probably would start Downs over Pittman. Definitely a close call. We might see that start sit question later in the live. All right, that's the Dolphins in the Colts. I think the Dolphins take this one. They're 1.5 point underdogs. I think they're being a little slept on, but the defense is likely going to struggle this season. All right, on to the next game here, and I'm going to pull up the QB ranks again as I talk through this one, because right out of the gates this week, you kind of have to start Drake May. Let me pull up the Raiders Pats here. Let me pull up the Patriots. Depending what your QB situation is, I think it's already pretty clear. Honestly, there's only been 2 games. And to me, it's already clear that the late round quarterback strategy was an absolute smash this season. We already saw Justin Herbert put up almost 30 fantasy points in his first game. He was available after round 10 in most fantasy drafts. Drake May, I think, is going to continue that trend. Caleb Williams as well. And we're probably going to see at least one big game, too, out of Jordan Love, Stroud, Trevor Lawrence. I'll get to all those guys later in the live. I'm not sure there's a team with more pressure. I know there's a lot of pressure on the Dolphins, who we just talked about, but I'm not. But the expectations aren't even actually high for the Dolphins. They're literally projected to lose versus the Colts. The expectations are really high for the Patriots, though. I think they might have the most pressure on them in the NFL. They're going from should have had the first overall pick, the worst record in the NFL last year, to projected over 8.5 wins, and they have an easy schedule, but I think this could really shift fast. The narrative here could shift very, very fast right away if they can't get it done against the Las Vegas Raiders. This game is in New England, and there is some weather. Weatherman Sam's here for you guys all season. Weatherman Sam's locked in, and there's some weather to report in this game as well. We're going to get to that a little bit later in the live, but the TLDR there, not that concerned. I'm really not that concerned, but this game specifically probably is going to have the biggest weather impact of the week, which I don't think is good for the favored New England Patriots here. They're only 2.5 point favorites, though, over the Raiders. And yeah, you got to start Drake May. I do think we see a year 2 leap. Whether or not the Patriots live up to their actual NFL expectations, I do expect a year 2 leap here from Drake May, who is getting one of the biggest offensive environment improvements from last offseason. If you guys read the draft guide that I spent months working on for everyone with the Walter Picks app. By the way, if you haven't downloaded the Walter Picks app yet, I do not know. I don't know what else to tell you, but you are actively not trying to win fantasy or props if you haven't at least tried the Walter Picks app, which you also can get a free 7-day trial to right now for free in the Walter Picks app. The premium, you can literally try premium for free. So you're actively not trying to win in fantasy or props if you haven't checked out the Walter Picks app yet. Someone said, make the app free, bro. It is free. It is a free 7-day trial. We strongly believe you should get a chance to see what you're going to pay for before you pay for it. That's why we got a 7-day free trial with the season kicking off. We are going to see a year 2 leap from Drake May. We would see a leap from any quarterback going from what the situation he was in last year to the situation he is in this year. Last year, not a single explosive offensive player on the team. Kayshon Boutte was the number 1 receiver for the Patriots last year. He was their best receiver last year, not their number 1, but he was the best receiver, especially down the stretch. He heads into the season as wide receiver 2 or 3. They add Stephon Diggs in the offseason. They draft Kyle Williams, who's not projected to have a big role, but I do think has at least some explosive potential. And then Trevion Henderson comes into the mix, instantly projects well ahead of Ramondre Stevenson. Absolute must start right away in week 1 here for Trevion Henderson. This is the type of player you want in fantasy football. I drafted Trevion Henderson in the second round of one of my high stakes 14-team back in the second round PPR leagues, not scared to reach for a profile like Trevion Henderson, who he doesn't need 15, 20 touches to smash each week in fantasy. He can rip off a 60, 80-yard play like we already saw in the preseason, annoyingly saw in the preseason because his price got a lot more expensive after people saw him in the preseason. This is one of the most explosive players in the NFL. This is the most explosive player that the Patriots have. And there is a chance he sees 15, 20 touches like immediately or sometime soon. And if that happens, he's going to absolutely smash. Top 12 running back finish, well within the range of outcomes for Henderson, especially in PPR leagues. And if you go back, Josh McDaniels, the new offensive coordinator, returning for the Patriots, he was a part of all 5 of Tom Brady's Super Bowls with the Patriots, 5 or 6. I think it was 5 with the Patriots, 1 with the Bucs, if I recall. the last 3 seasons that Josh McDaniels was the OC, James White's target shares would have ranked top 3 each of the past 3 years. All 3 of James White's last 3 seasons with Josh McDaniels as OC, his target share would have ranked top 3 each of the last 3 seasons. Just to put it into context, Trevion Henderson could have a top 3 running back target share in the NFL this season, and it might start right away here in week 1. He was extremely pro-ready, too. One of the best pass-blocking tight running backs that we've seen out of the draft in recent history. I'm really curious to see the Diggs role here, too, though, because we have not seen him play at all in the preseason. Did not get a game in, but he's been practicing in full for quite some time. So we should see some pretty strong numbers out of Stefon Diggs, I think, right away. And definitely startable here in week 1. Let me pull up the wide receiver ranks here so you guys can see where Stefon Diggs is at. All right. I do think the Patriots get it done today, but man, it does feel like a lot of pressure on a team that was so bad last year. The offensive line should be improved here as well. For the Raiders side of the ball, I mean, Ashton Jeanty, he projects as the running back 5 left this week. And by the way, the rankings I have up, these are only the players left. So there's no Chargers, there's no Chiefs, there's no Eagles, there's no Cowboys in these rankings. These rankings are for everyone who has decisions to make today, which is why I leave those players out. This is this week's rankings. And Ashton Jeanty ranks as running back 5. And it wouldn't be surprising to see Jeanty finish as running back 1. This is a truly elite generational prospect here. There is, I don't want to say no chance that Jeanty fails, but it's harder to find a better profile than Ashton Jeanty when it comes to running back prospects. He literally almost broke the all-time college football records. And I know that he was playing at, not the most competitive school, but even against the elite teams, Ashton Jeanty, where in a college environment where every single game that Jeanty played in college, the entire game plan of the defense was to stop Ashton Jeanty. That was the only thing that they were focused on. And still, Jeanty was ripping, multiple 100-yard games, multiple 200-yard games. And I think he's a better receiving back than he's getting credit for as well. An instant top 10, even top 5 running back here in fantasy football. And I think we're going to see that like pretty much immediately. And then I just had a note here, Brock Bowers, if he takes a year 2 leap, we could be looking at the best fantasy tight end season of all time. That's within the range of outcomes for Brock Bowers. In past fantasy seasons, Brock Bowers would have been a first-round pick. In past years, we saw Travis Kelce, we saw Rob Gronkowski be first-round picks. We saw Jimmy Graham be first-round picks. In fantasy football in the past, Brock Bowers in those environments would have been a first-round pick. There's a lot of good first-round picks this year, and really it was like the first 16 guys all the way through like Drake London, you could argue were first-round pick talents. But man, I really think you could argue Brock Bowers should have been a first-round pick because he could literally have the best tight end season of all time, and it wouldn't be that crazy. We usually see tight ends take a big leap from year 1 to year 2. Rookie tight ends it's so uncommon to see rookie tight ends succeed. But even when they do, we often see a year 2 leap. Now, Brock Bowers, he's coming off the best rookie tight end season literally ever. So will we see a year 2 leap off the best rookie tight end season ever? I think that is a exciting question to be asking here heading into week 1. The Patriots are going to struggle, I think, to stop this Raiders offense today. I'm starting the Pats defense in a lot of spots, but that was before the Christian Gonzalez injury. Christian Gonzalez, the top corner for the Pats, he's going to be out. Christian Barmore is back, the defensive tackle for the Pats. He missed all of last season, probably their best defensive player. But I feel a little bit worse about the Pats defense than I did when I drafted them in a lot of spots. And we got a Jacoby Myers revenge game here too. He's definitely a solid start. All right, that's the Pats Raiders. Again, I think the Pats do get it done, but they might have the most pressure on them in the NFL here in week 1 because the narrative could shift so fast if they take the L today. Now, only 2.5-point favorites. And by the way, the weather report here, let's just let Weatherman Sam just jump in quick because this is the game, this Pats game is the game with the most concerning weather. So Weatherman Sam, he'll be here for you all season long. And there's going to be rain throughout the Patriots-Raiders game. Let me just refresh the report here to give you the most up-to-date. It's going to be absolutely downpouring in New England before the game, pregame. By the time kickoff happens, we're likely going to be looking at just like steady, moderate on and off rain throughout the whole game. I do think it's going to be, pretty wet conditions here for the Raiders Pats. And again, it's going to be absolutely pouring. You're going to see, When you tune into these lives, one of the things you get is you're not surprised with whatever you end up seeing when you actually turn on your TV for the games in a few hours. So don't be surprised when it's absolutely downpouring and you see Drake May drenched, Brock Bowers, Nash and Genty completely drenched before the game. But it's supposed to be at its worst before kickoff. I'm really not that concerned. I would not make any start-sit decisions differently based on this report. I still think both teams will be able to throw the ball in this environment. And it easily could still be a pretty good fantasy environment here with a banged-up Patriots defense. And we'll see how this Raiders defense really is. There's a lot of other games, though, with some projected rain. There's rain kind of across the NFL on the Northeast today. Again, none of it's really that concerning to me, though. The Patriots have the worst situation. The Jets-Steelers game, which I'm going to get to here in a second, also projected to have some rain. This is the next most notable game, I think, rain-wise, because this game was already projected to be just gross. I mean, this is just a gross game environment. And then you add rain on top of that. But none of these are like downpouring, significant rain. And most importantly, Weatherman Sam's here to remind you, there's no wind. There's no wind in any of these games. And wind is the most concerning thing when it comes to weather and impact in the NFL. And none of these games, wind over 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour, that's where we start to get like really concerned about the pass game environments and the scoring potential. There is not concerning wind. Players can play through rain. Players can play through cold. They can play through snow. There's a lot of statistical evidence that is very difficult to throw in 25 plus mile an hour winds. We're not going to have that. So it's notable. Don't be surprised when you see the rain, but just overly, Weatherman Sam, not overly concerned here in week one, but there are some notable games with rain. The other games, the Panthers and Jags, the Titans and the Broncos, 49ers and the Seahawks. Again, I'm just not that concerned. We're not moving projections at all here in these games. But the biggest projected rain game is that Patriots-Raiders game. All right, let's move on to, speaking of, the second most notable game here when it comes to the weather. This is the Steelers versus the Jets. Easily the ugliest game on paper. This game has like a 10-point lower over-under than basically every other game. I think it's at like 38.5. The only game in the 30s here. This Steelers versus Jets game. This is a disgusting matchup. I mean, it would not be shocking to see this game, become a kicker battle. And we see some score in the multiples of 3 here on both sides of the ball. A 9-6, a 9-3 outcome here wouldn't be shocking. This is a double revenge game. Though, I mean, I honestly, as ugly as the game sort of projects on paper, and again, there's going to be rain in this game too, not significant rain, but there's going to be some rain on top of this. These are projected to be 2 of the most run-heavy teams in the NFL, but also this is a double revenge game. Aaron Rodgers against the Jets, and back before it was clear that Rodgers was going to play this season, I thought Rodgers was going to retire at the end of last season. I'm usually pretty spot on in these types of spots. I thought Rodgers was going to retire because I did not think there was actually going to be a team that wanted him as a starting QB. And I knew that Rodgers would not want to be a backup anywhere. That was just not going to happen. Then the schedule came out. And I saw this week 1 game. I said, oh, nope, I changed my mind. He's definitely playing, and he's definitely playing for the Steelers. And here we are, week 1, revenge game for Rodgers against the Jets. This game is in New York. The Steelers are 2.5-point favorites. Rodgers in New York, a favorite over the Jets. And the part of the reason that the Jets are underdogs in this game is there's absolutely no hope for the Jets passing the ball this season. Like the projection in terms of passing here for the Jets is easily the lowest in the NFL. Before I move to the Jets side of the ball, though, is DK Metcalf trustworthy? Let me hop over to the wide receiver ranks again. On the TikTok Live, I'll actually pull up I got the wide receiver rankings up. Let's pull up the running back rankings. I talked to the Steelers running backs, actually. Hop over to those. Let me know in the comments, too, which rankings you want to see me pull up next. I'll do my best to pull up them all over the course of the live. I'm going game by game right now, by the way, if you're just joining. We're going game by game. We've already talked about a few of the games. I'm going to talk through every single game before I jump into the comments. I'm going to give my free player props at the end of all of the games. I'm going to talk through my Draftkings lineup, and then we're going to answer hundreds of start-sit comments. We're going to get to so many comments on this live in just a little bit here. But I want to talk through every single game and my thoughts on them first. The running back situation here for the Steelers, I think, is going to be a fantasy football nightmare. And Jaylen Warren projects the best. He's definitely startable here against the Jets. And there's been some positive comments about him recently. He just signed an extension. Projects as a back-end running back too. They said that he's going to be a featured runner, which we've never really seen for Jaylen Warren. We've always seen him be a complimentary back. He didn't have a single 20-point game last season. I think we didn't see him really get 10 carry games. If we go to his volume here in the Walter Picks app, if you're watching live on TikTok, by the way, come to the YouTube live. I'm telling you, it is a way, way better viewing experience. Nothing against TikTok. I'll answer comments from both, but I can share my screen on the YouTube live. I can't do that on TikTok. We're looking at Jaylen Warren's game logs on YouTube. We can't look at them on TikTok. Link to that's right in the TikTok bio, or just look up Walter Picks on YouTube. Yeah, we saw one game over 12 carries for Jaylen Warren last season. I mean, really rare we see him get like this significant rushing volume. The Steelers go out, they draft Caleb Johnson in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. A lot of people thought he was going to go in the 2nd round. He fits really well scheme-wise for the Steelers, but he's supposedly behind Kenneth Gainwell. I mean, he's completely unstartable. I mean, Caleb Johnson has to be one of the must-benches here in week 1, like a very obvious must-bench. I drafted Caleb Johnson in the 32 creator league at Walter Picks, and I'm not even starting him in that league. I'm starting Dylan Sampson over him in that one. I mean, you just cannot start Caleb Johnson here in week 1. Not a great situation, at least out of the gates here for Caleb Johnson, but I wouldn't panic or sell low on Caleb Johnson still. It's just a situation you just got to hold him. So Jaylen Warren may be the only startable Steelers player, and then it's DK Metcalf, who projects, like it's hard not to project him over 25% target share, which we I think I've seen once. Yeah, 2022, DK Metcalf hit a 25% target share. When you look at this depth chart, though, it's like, how is DK Metcalf not hitting a 25% target share? He's competing with Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin. I mean, they have 2 reasonable tight ends in Muth and Jonnu Smith, but it's just not a real wide receiver room on this team. Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin expected to be wide receiver 2 and 3 here. But both these teams just project for such low pass volume and such a slow pace that even their top receivers are tough to get excited about. We're about to talk about Garrett Wilson here and Breece Hall in a second as well for the Jets. But DK Metcalf really more of like a flex and not a guy that I would tell you to must start here in week 1. I think DK Metcalf is going to be pretty frustrating in fantasy football and more of a best ball play, in my opinion. A start-sit nightmare here, especially if Aaron Rodgers spreads the ball around, and especially if we see from Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator for the Steelers, be as annoying as he's been in the past for fantasy, where he never gives his best players the volume that the fantasy community wants. I mean, it was Bijan's rookie season that Arthur Smith was only giving him 60% of the work and giving that other 40% to Tyler Algier. Another reason to be pretty concerned, I think, about this whole running back room. Could really shift a lot week to week here. And then you got the Jets, who are underdogs in this game. Justin Fields, on the other side of this game, a revenge game for him too. And honestly, like I feel like Justin Fields left on worse terms with the Steelers than Rodgers left with the Jets. You know, this is, I think, maybe more of a revenge game here for Justin Fields. The last time we saw an offense really built around Justin Fields, he finishes the top 5 QB in fantasy football. I still feel a little sketchy starting him here, though. Like this revenge game situation for him specifically versus the Steelers does not feel like a great fantasy situation. The Steelers defense knows him well. They know that he can't throw, and they're going to be selling out to stop the run here against Justin Fields, especially in a game with rain. His passing line in the player props, under 200 yards. I mean, every week his line's going to be in like the 150s, 160s. And that brings us to Garrett Wilson, who I think is like a little underappreciated right now, as difficult as it's going to be for Justin Fields to throw and how low the pass volume might be on this team. I think the Jets probably lead the NFL in percentage of rushing plays this season. Like they could get to 60% run plays. That wouldn't be that crazy. Could be like an Anthony Richardson type situation here with Justin Fields. But man, I mean, we're talking about DK Metcalf on the Steelers. It's an even bigger joke in the wide receiver room here for the Jets. Josh Reynolds is wide receiver 2. Allen Lazard is still on the team. Breece Hall, I think, is the second best receiver on this team after Garrett Wilson. And Garrett Wilson is, I think, pretty much a lock to be top 5 in target share. But that doesn't mean he's going to be top 5 in targets. Not all target shares are created equal here. But yeah, I think Garrett Wilson, an underrated talent. I think Breece Hall is kind of getting underrated as a talent too. A lot of people got excited about Braylon Allen this offseason. But Breece Hall we've seen be like a Saquon Barkley clone. That type of efficiency is what we've seen. And that type of receiving upside is what we've seen from Breece Hall in the past. So I still think there's a really high ceiling for Breece. But yeah, if he's going to split with Braylon Allen, and Justin Fields obviously going to take a lot of the rushing work too. You know, what does it ultimately look like volume-wise for Breece? But yeah, I think talent-wise, both Breece and Garrett Wilson are both going a bit underrated. when you look at the rest of this roster, I mean, they're just clearly the two most talented offensive players this team has. They just can't afford not to give these guys the ball a significant amount. I'm willing to bet on talent here for both these guys right away in week one, even in a somewhat difficult matchup here. The other thing to note for Brees and Justin Fields is Justin Fields actually checks the ball down to the running backs at a lot higher rate than people realize. Like actually a pretty comparable rate to Aaron Rodgers. He's been like top 10 in target share to the running backs, for multiple years now, Justin Fields. He actually does check the ball down a decent amount. That is good news for Brees Hall. All right, that's this Jets-Steelers game. I will ride with the Steelers in this one. They are slight favorites here in New York. I do think Aaron Rodgers is actually a bit better quarterback in NFL terms than he's gotten credit for too. I mean, the guy's 38 years old and was coming off. He's 42 years old. He's coming off a torn Achilles last season, and he actually finished the season decently. A couple of pretty impressive games. I know he had Adams and Wilson, not the situation he's in now, but I think he's getting just a tiny bit underrated here in terms of NFL, not fantasy, obviously. Okay, so DK Metcalf, not that trustworthy. I think Brees and Garrett Wilson, a little underappreciated. Double revenge game here, I think is actually going to be pretty fun, even though this game projects to be extremely, extremely ugly. All right, we're going to get to all the start sits, by the way. I see the start sits in the comments. Let me pull up my must start, must bench here on the TikTok live. We're going to get to them. I promise. We're going game by game right now. If you're watching live on YouTube, guys, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button. Come to the YouTube live. I'm telling you, better viewing experience over there. I can share my screen. Just a lot more I can share on screen on the YouTube live. Same content, obviously. All right. Giants and Commanders. This has to be one of the other survivor pool picks of the week here that people are considering. I'm going with the Cardinals over the Saints personally. I'm just going to bet against the team with the worst quarterback situation in the league. I do not see how Spencer Rattler could beat the Cardinals here in week one. Would be absolutely shocking to me, even with the Saints at home. But the Commanders, they're 6.5-point favorites here at home versus the Giants. And one question I just jotted down here as I was prepping for this live and thinking about this game. Jaden Daniels, is he the fantasy QB1 this season? If it's not going to be Lamar or Josh Allen, my next bet would be Jaden Daniels. This guy was literally built in a lab for fantasy football. If you went into a lab and you said, how am I going to build a quarterback to absolutely smash in fantasy football? You would come out with Jaden Daniels, who last season, 22.5 points per game as a rookie. And I know a lot of people are always scared of the sophomore slump. We see the sophomore slump all the time at quarterback. If there's anyone to not be afraid of the sophomore slump for, I think it's Jaden Daniels. And if anything, I think he's going to be even better here in year two. He is really, outside of Jalen Hurts, who we just saw score 2 rushing touchdowns in his opening game, the only guy that can really match the Allen and Lamar rushing volume. And then on top of that, be one of the better, most accurate deep passers in the league. I really wouldn't be surprised if Jaden Daniels is QB1 this season and you got him at a discount versus Lamar and Allen in drafts. And I think we'll see it right away here against the Giants. 100 plus rushing yard potential every game, multiple deep pass attempt completions every game. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, or Bill, as I believe he wants to be called, is, I think, one of the most obvious overhyped players in fantasy football heading into week one. And I'm sorry for the JCM people out there, but I do not get how he got steamed up so high, so fast. This guy was a 7th round pick, an intriguing 7th round pick, kind of a weird college situation for him. He was ineligible for a year, so he's on the older side. And he was actually really, really good in college when he played extremely efficient, but never really caught many passes. He's a 24.5-year-old rookie. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt we're talking about here for the Commanders. I saw him get picked in the 7th round in multiple drafts, round 6, round 7, round 8. This guy was going. He's not the starting running back on this team. Will not be starting today. He is not going to be the first running back on the field today for the Commanders. He's not going to play the most snaps today at running back for the Commanders. He might not even play the 2nd most or 3rd most snaps. He literally might be the 4th running back on this team. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, guys, being a healthy scratch, is possible here in week one. Wouldn't be that shocking. We've already seen it for a couple of rookies. I think there's another couple of rookies I'll touch on that could end up being healthy scratches here in week one. And JCM's one of them. It is extremely, extremely rare. And you're talking to a guy, listening to a guy here that's about as high as this rookie running back class, as high on this rookie running back class as you could possibly be. I mean, I've had rookie fever since the NFL draft. And JCM is a small part of it. But man, it is extremely rare to see 7th round NFL draft picks at the running back position succeed in fantasy. I mean, under 5% hit rate there if you just filter the 7th round running backs. So yeah, I'm out on JCM. I like his unders today. A sneak peek at one of the free player props, under 31.5, 33.5 rushing yards. Pretty wide range of lines set for JCM, but this guy could easily get less than 5 carries. I think we're projecting him for 5 carries. Right now, it wouldn't be surprising to see him get under 5. I don't think he's going to get much more than 5. Chris Rodriguez is the goal line back on this team. He's the short yardage back, and I think he's probably the starter. Austin Eckler, though, he's going to lead the team in snaps. He led the running back room in snaps last year. He's obviously going to get a lot of the passing work. So he might be the first running back out there here to start the game as well. And he's probably the best bet to lead the backfield in snaps. So you got the short yardage goal line back, who's pretty solidified in Chris Rodriguez. You got the pass down back who's going to lead the backfield in snaps in Austin Eckler. You got Jaden Daniels, who projects for a ton of rushing work, over 20% of the rush share himself. And then we got Deebo Samuel also on this team now, who's going to have some rushing role. Again, we've seen this from Deebo in the past with the 49ers. No reason not to expect him to be somewhat involved in the backfield here for Washington too. And then on top of that, guys, like Jeremy McNichols might actually be ahead of Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. There's more familiarity with McNichols than JCM for this Commanders coaching staff. Another guy who's probably a better pass catcher than Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who never caught passes in college. There's just not a role. There's just not a clear path to a real role here for JCM, at least to start the season. I think he's probably the most exciting upside, like long-term running back here. But man, I mean, week 1, absolutely not. Do not start Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt here in week 1. Definitely one of the most overhyped players in fantasy right now. And I wish I could be excited about it, but the hype just got out of control. Just absolutely out of control. We're starting Terry McLaurin, even though he missed most of preseason here. I'm fine starting Deebo Samuel as well. But the Commanders, they will spread the ball around a lot. Could be kind of a frustrating fantasy environment outside of Jaden Daniels on this team. And then the Giants side of the ball. Again, the Commanders are 6.5-point favorites at home in this game. Not a bad survivor pool pick by any means. Malik Neighbors, is he going to lead the NFL in target share again? He probably will. Unless it's Garrett Wilson, who we talked about. But Garrett Wilson's target share won't mean as much on a team that's probably going to throw the least passes in the NFL with the New York Jets. Neighbors probably got a QB upgrade this offseason. And I think the QB upgrade might be going a little underrated for Neighbors, because not only did they upgrade from Daniel Jones to Russell Wilson, but they have like legit backups now in New York. Like there's just all season going to be a real quarterback, fantasy-wise at least, from Malik Neighbors. Jackson Dart looked great in the preseason. We were really high on him as a prospect. He's not going to be playing, obviously, here in week 1. He might not play this whole season, but even Jameis Winston is very fantasy-friendly here from Malik Neighbors. No one else in this team is really like a must start. The Commanders really struggled against the run last year, so you could toss in Tracy if you want to. I do think Scatterbo will have a role right away for this team. He might be the immediate goal line short yardage back, and he's a better receiving back than I think a lot of people realize as well. I'm pretty high on Scatterbo in his ceiling this season, but Tracy definitely projects better here in week 1, and he's the more startable player here in week 1. All right, that's the Giants and the Commanders. Would be really, really shocking to see the Commanders blow that one. All right, on to the Panthers-Jaguars, man. I got to pull up the tight end ranks here as we talk about this Panthers-Jaguars game. I'm pumped for this game, man. I mean, of all the games, this honestly might be the game I'm sneakily most excited for. First off, for the Carolina Panthers. And by the way, guys, if you're just tuning in, we've been live for coming up on an hour. Now, we're just getting started. We have multiple hours left. I'm going to get to hundreds of start sits here coming up shortly. We're over halfway through talking through all the games. And then I'll give my free player props, which were 63%, 64% hit rate last year. I'm going to go through my Draftkings lineup, which cashed more than half the weeks last year as well. And then I'm also going to answer so many start sits. We're going to get to all the comments here coming up shortly. So appreciate all your patience and appreciate everyone who's tuned in. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if you haven't yet on YouTube. Seriously helps me out way more than you realize. And if you're watching live on TikTok, smash the follow button. We're live every single Sunday morning for multiple hours leading up to kickoff. Man, what a time to be alive. Week 1, Sunday morning, man. All right, let's talk about this game, because I do think this is one of the more exciting games here, in my opinion. Just so much that we're going to learn. And I meant to start out the live. I'm trying to pace myself. Meant to start the live with just a reminder to everyone that week 1, it's got to be the most humbling week every single season. Every season. And I think one of the biggest advantages you can get in fantasy football is reacting the right amount to the new information that we get in the first couple of weeks of the season. What happens this week is way more valuable than everything that we've talked about this whole offseason, with some real data. And then once we have a couple, 2-3 weeks of data, we're going to completely shift our opinions in some situations. And we want to do that. You don't want to lock into takes, and you got to anticipate being wrong a lot here in week 1. I go in with that mentality. It's an extremely humbling thing to try to predict the NFL well. And we've been doing it well for multiple years. But just a reminder here that we're going to learn a ton. And I think we're going to learn a ton in this game, this Panthers versus Jaguars game. Which Bryce Young are we going to get? Let me actually go to the Panthers first. Bryce Young gets an upgrade with Ted McMillan. This offseason, they ship off Adam Thielen, which I think it was definitely a vote of confidence in Jalen Coker, who literally got hurt days later. He's on IR. He's probably going to miss more than 4 games, but he won't be out there week 1, week 2, week 3, or week 4 for sure. But I think it's a vote of confidence in Ted McMillan, definitely, who's going to be an instant fantasy must start basically right out of the gates here. And again, we're going to get to the tight ends here in a sec when we get to the Jaguars. But the Jaguars defense, guys, they're going to struggle this season. This is not a good defense. They just traded all the draft capital to go get Travis Hunter, who's going to play some defense in this game, but not a lot. Man, Ted McMillan up against Travis Hunter will be fun to watch, though, if that happens. Well, I'll get to Travis Hunter here in a sec when we talk about the Jaguars. But yeah, Ted McMillan, an absolute must start in fantasy, probably getting underrated in most fantasy leagues heading into the season. Could easily hit a Malik Neighbors type target share for the Panthers this season. I don't want to say easily, but it wouldn't be surprising for Ted McMillan to go 30% target share on this team. Ted McMillan's capable of playing every single wide receiver position, inside and outside. Going to be a really good route runner, and he's sneakily good after the catch as well. So you got to start him. Chuba Hubbard's definitely a must start here in week 1. He was on my do not draft list, though. I really expect Rico Dowdle to play a real receiving role. That's going to be a problem for Chuba Hubbard to really smash and win leagues this season. And I want to draft league winners. I don't think Chuba Hubbard's going to win leagues, but really good matchup for him out of the gates. Obviously a must start if you drafted him. Ja'Tavion Sanders might play a bigger role with Jalen Coker out. Curious to see how he does. But yeah, my biggest question for the Panthers is just which Bryce Young are we going to get, man? Because if we get the Bryce Young from the final stretch last season, where he was a top 2 fantasy quarterback in 2 of his last 3 weeks, I think somewhat lost in that narrative, though. Like, he had pretty good matchups here down the stretch last season. He played 2 bottom 4 defenses at the end of last season with the Bucs and the Falcons. The Cardinals were not the best defense last year either. And he had a lot of rushing production in these games. He scored 4 rushing touchdowns in his final 4 games last year. Is he going to be able to keep that up? He had 7 passing touchdowns and 4 rushing touchdowns in those final 3 games where he was actually smashing, which was, polar opposite to the beginning of last season where he literally was benched for Andy Dalton after 2 weeks. Very curious to see which Bryce Young we get. If I had to guess which Bryce Young we're going to get, I think it's going to be more like the end of last season than the beginning. I'm actually pretty high on Bryce Young. I think he's a very interesting fantasy sleeper, and did get some wide receiver upgrades, even with Adam Thielen and Jalen Coker not there. The Jaguars, though, I think we're going to get more questions answered than the Panthers. I think the Panthers are actually pretty straightforward. You're starting Tet, you're starting Hubbard. Bryce Young, he's a sleeper. No one's really starting him here in week 1 unless you're in a super flex league. But the Jaguars, Travis Hunter, there was a report that came out, I think yesterday, that he's going to be an every down receiver. And it's just, if you've been listening to any of the content I've been making, you've been following the Walter Picks-app advice this offseason, or you just are locked in, like, not surprising. This is not a surprising report about Travis Hunter. If you've been following anything about this team, never mind Travis Hunter, look at the team. How is this team going to stand there with Travis Hunter on the sidelines as they're in competitive games and they're letting De'Ami Brown and Tim Patrick and Parker Washington run routes when they have Travis Hunter on the team? He clearly can make a bigger impact for them on offense than defense. This team needs a legit wide receiver 2, and he is a legit wide receiver 2. Like, he might be as good, guys, as Brian Thomas Jr. That is the type of ceiling that Travis Hunter has. I don't think he's getting enough credit for that type of receiver ceiling. Everyone's all panicked because, he's going to get hurt because he's playing defense as well, or he's not going to play a ton because he's also playing defense. Like, this is not a guy to doubt. And you definitely don't want to underrate the ceiling here. If we look back heading into next season, like, there could be a real debate going on heading into next season about Brian Thomas Jr. or Travis Hunter. That's the type of ceiling that we could get from Travis Hunter. So yeah, very excited to see him, and not surprising at all that he's going to have a massive offensive role. Because again, what you're going to let De'Ami Brown and Tim Patrick run routes when you're losing to the Panthers? Like, absolutely not. It's just not going to happen. And they said it might change up week to week, but man, if this defense is as bad as I think it's going to be, if they're losing, like, you have to play Travis Hunter on offense. And I think he's going to be able to play some defensive snaps too. The other thing I'm very interested about, though, with Travis Hunter playing both ways, because I feel like you can really scheme against this, especially if they're in man coverage. If you're the other team, if I'm the Carolina Panthers, I'm trotting out David Moore against Travis Hunter. And whoever Travis Hunter is covering, if I'm the Panthers or any other team playing Travis Hunter on defense, I'm going to have them run a straight vertical route and definitely not throw them the ball and just try to tire out Travis Hunter as much as I possibly can. Seems like pretty straightforward of a strategy. Obviously, there's some stuff that the Jags could do to mitigate that if they're playing zone and stuff. But yeah, it just seems easier to attack him on defense and easier for the Jaguars to make sure he's featured on offense. The other big thing here, though, is the running back rules. All 4 running backs for the Jags might be active today. I mean, we'll get the reports here in a couple of hours of the actives and inactives. But LaQuint Allen might be active, and LaQuint Allen could lead this backfield in targets. Wouldn't be that crazy. Travis Etienne, I think, is a start here in week 1. Let me go back to the running back ranks here quick, and we'll hop to the tight ends in a second. Pull up the running back ranks. Shout out to everyone tuning into this live, by the way. We're going game by game right now. I'm going to get to every single comment. I'm going to get so many comments on this live stream. Hundreds of start-sit questions will be answered. Right now, we're going game by game. And one of the biggest games, I think, today, in terms of information that we are going to gather here, is this Jaguars game. Travis Etienne projects as the lead back right now. And he's startable today for sure, especially in the spot against the Carolina Panthers. But Tank Bigsby is going to have a role. And Bashal Tutin is the most exciting running back on the team. Not a guy you want to start in fantasy, but really one of my most drafted players in fantasy. I think has a league-winning ceiling down the stretch here in this offense. But LaQuint Allen, I think he's going to be active, and I think he's going to have an annoying role that people really aren't expecting. He led all of college football running backs last year in receptions. No running back had more catches than LaQuint Allen. And he put up wide receiver type reception numbers at Syracuse last year. 7th round pick. Not surprised that he made the team. But the guy I'm most excited to talk about in this game, let's hop back over to the tight end rankings. And if you're just tuning in, guys, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. We are just getting started here. Brenton Strange is definitely one of my bigger bets of the season. I mean, if I had to say who my one ride or die player was this season, and we posted an article, a newsletter article about this recently, you can find it in the Walter Picks app actually right now. Brenton Strange is my ride or die, partially because I'm just very in on a late round tight end strategy this season. And Brenton Strange was that late round tight end for me this season in a lot of cases. When I punted tight end, if I didn't get Kittle, Bowers, or McBride, I really punted. And I was like by far the last person in a lot of my leagues to take a tight end. And I'm trotting out Brenton Strange as a starter in multiple leagues today. And I'm feeling pretty good about it, man. We've seen in the games where Brenton Strange had at least 3 catches. At least 3 catches. He went for at least 9 points in every single one of those games last year. I think it was 6 games with at least 3 catches, 6 games with at least 9 PPR points. Now, if you filter to just his games with at least 3 catches last year, top 10 fantasy tight end. And he really wasn't playing a ton. 68% snap percentage, 70% snap percentage. He had 2 games over 80% of the snaps. I expect most games to be 80% around or more of the snaps for Brenton Strange. I think most games he's getting 3+ catches on this team, who's going to have a really bad defense. This is an extremely athletic, size-adjusted athlete here in Brenton Strange. I think he's got good touchdown potential as well. And yeah, I'm starting him over a bunch of tight ends here in week 1. I'm starting him over Evan Ingram, who's on my do not draft list, who people drafted 6, 7 rounds earlier than Brenton Strange. I'm starting him over Kyle Pitts. I'm starting over Dalton Kincaid. I feel okay trotting out Brenton Strange here in week 1. And he is going to be one of the free player props that I get to here momentarily as well. And yeah, I would start him over Colson Loveland also. I would start Kraft over Brenton Strange. I actually think I'd probably go Kate Otten over Brenton Strange, who we have ranked ahead. I start Laporta and Hawkinson and Tyler Warren and Joker, everyone else over Strange. But yeah, I'm all in on Brenton Strange in the late round tight end strategy. And part of the reason the late round tight end strategy works, and I don't mean to give a half-bake, bold take here, but I didn't invest a lot in Brenton Strange. If Brenton Strange ends up not hitting, it's really not a huge deal. I'll go find someone on waivers. I'll just go add Harold Fannin after this week. or, I'll be able to piece it together on the waivers. That's part of the bet I'm making here with Strange. But yeah, I do like him a lot in week 1. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people this season. And I'm taking the Jags in this one. I do think we probably see a pretty good version of Bryce Young in this spot. And I actually think this game could be really high scoring. But I'm in on this Jaguars offense with Liam Cohen here as the new coach. But Brenton Strange season, it's finally here, man. Man, it's the best day of the week. Cannot wait to see Brenton Strange on our TV screens in just a few hours. All right, on to another pretty exciting fantasy environment here. And that's the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Cleveland Browns. On one side of the ball, you got the Bengals are just a dream fantasy football setup. A dream fantasy football setup. And again, I'm going to get to all the comments here very, very soon. I think we're actually almost into the late window of games. Yeah, 2 more early window games. We got the Bengals, Browns, and we got the Bucs, Falcons. Then just a few more games to talk through after that. Then we'll get to the free player props. Then we'll get to the Draftkings lineup. And then we will answer hundreds of comments here on this live stream today. All right. The Bengals are really a dream fantasy football setup because they're going to be top 3 in the league in pass attempts. They led the NFL in pass rate over expectation last year. I think they led the league in pass attempts per game as well. And their defense is absolutely atrocious. I mean, again, this is one of the few defenses really from last year that you could just basically know for sure they're going to be awful again. Because unlike a lot of the bad defenses last year, it really wasn't injury related for the Bengals last year, like it was for the Lions, for example. Their whole defense was hurt. The Bengals just have a bad defense. And they changed very little about the defense this offseason. So the defense is going to suck. The pass rate is going to be high for the Bengals. And then on the other side of this game, Joe Flacco is not going to start every game for the Browns this year. We're going to see multiple starting QBs for the Browns. But man, for fantasy, we want Joe Flacco starting. We really want Joe Flacco starting. And the Browns defense is probably good, but again, for the Bengals, doesn't really matter. You're starting this passing attack in every single matchup. But yeah, Joe Flacco definitely ideal here for Njoku and Jeudy. Both really must starts, I think, today. You got to start these guys while Flacco's starting, because who knows what it's going to be like with some of these more sketchy quarterbacks for the Browns. The only other big question I have in this game is what's the running back role for both Taj Brooks, and Samaje Perine. Look, I'm combining the 2 Bengals running backs in my mind. Taj Brooks and Samaje Perine, do they have real roles this season? Because I could see Samaje Perine definitely mixing in on some pass downs, which we did not see a running back mixing on pass downs last year. Chase Brown was the only real running back on this team last year. And Taj Brooks could carve out a goal line role as well. I think he's a pretty exciting goal line back. I'm not overly concerned though, just something I'm watching for sure. But Chase Brown projects as an absolute must start, top 10 running back here in week 1. And then, yeah, for the Browns, you've got to start Njoku. Njoku, I don't think a lot of people remember Njoku's season last year. He was the tight end 4 in points per game. After Kittle and Bowers and McBride, it was Njoku, man. And I think he could easily be a top 5 tight end in fantasy again this season. And he was not getting drafted as a top 5 tight end in fantasy this season. If I went late round tight end, Njoku was really the first guy I'd start considering. Him and Tyler Warren were the first tight ends I'd start considering. Just skip that whole tier of tight ends after those Elite 3 in drafts this year. And Njoku was definitely part of that. Brenton Strange, as I just talked about, was a part of that too. But yeah, he's an absolute smash in this matchup versus the Bengals with Joe Flacco starting. Could easily be the tight end 1 this week. Would not be surprising. Same thing with Jeudy. Absolute smash start here in week 1. As long as Flacco's starting, plus this matchup versus the Bengals, really, really good spot for both guys. I'm excited to watch Harold Fandon. I do think he's going to have a real role. Harold Fandon led all players, not tight ends. Harold Fandon led all players in receiving yards in college football last season. He's only 21 years old, has a lot of Antonio Gates vibes. I don't want to say he's an Antonio Gates level of prospect, but man, I mean, he absolutely smashed. And he was at Bowling Green, so a lot of people knock his profile for that. But when he played legit, top 10, top 25 ranked teams in college football last year, he was smashing. He played Tyler Warren in Penn State, and he did better than Tyler Warren in that game. Similar to an Ashton Genty, where when you were up against Bowling Green, you just had to stop Harold Fandon. When you're up against Boise State, you just had to stop Ashton Genty, and still these defenses couldn't stop him. Very intriguing player in Harold Fandon, despite being really young. We'll see what the running back situation here is. Judkins did end up signing his contract and seemingly will play this season, but I think he's also pretty likely to see some length of suspension, probably 3 to 6 game suspension. Maybe it's as low as 2. So we'll probably see him in the second month of the season, Judkins. So there won't be a ton to really learn here from the Browns other than how much of a pass game role is Dylan Sampson really going to have? because he's been viewed much more as a pure runner. I think Sampson is probably going to be the immediate backup to Judkins once he comes back, and Ford will be in a pass down role. But Ford could end up being pretty startable. One of these two running backs is a very sneaky flex option this week, not the worst running back option in deeper leagues. And Flacco also kind of a sneaky DFS play. Not my starting quarterback in my DFS lineup, but I definitely could see a Flacco and Njoku, Flacco, Judy stack doing pretty well in DFS tournaments today because of that Bengals game environment. All right, I got the Bengals here, though, in this one. I do think they're going to start stronger than years past. They did actually play in the preseason for the first time. All right, last early window game here. Before we get to the final games, get to the free player props, get to the Draftkings lineup, and then get to the comment section. Going to get to so many comments on this live stream. As I talk about the Bucs, Falcons, let's pull up the wide receiver ranks here, because I assume this stood out to a lot of you in the wide receiver ranks. Let me pull up the wide receiver rankings here. And one of the biggest pieces of injury news that we're waiting on is Darnell Mooney. And if Darnell Mooney is going to play in week 1, he's currently questionable with a shoulder injury. And right now we are projecting Darnell Mooney out in the Walter Picks app. And that projects Drake London as the wide receiver 1 here in week 1 over Jamar Chase, over Nico Collins, over Justin Jefferson. Drake London could be the wide receiver 1 in fantasy this year. Wouldn't be that shocking. We have a very small sample of Drake London with Michael Penix, but man, is it exciting. We saw 3 games where Penix played last year, where Drake London also played. In those 3 games, Drake London went for a 31% target share, a 37% target share, and a 48% target share. Was not under 30% in any of those. He averaged out like close to 40% target share in those games with Penix. And so, yeah, it's hard not to project him as the wide receiver 1 if Darnell Mooney's out. His floor with Mooney out is a 30% target share. I mean, it would be surprising for him to go under a 30% target share. That's the ceiling for almost every other player in the NFL. And that's his floor. I mean, his ceiling is like north of a 50% target share in this game, especially if the Bucs offense can keep pace and the Falcons are playing from behind. 18 targets for Drake London in his last game with Michael Penix. Crazy, crazy stuff. I mean, the projectable role here for London, if Mooney's out, even if Mooney's in, obviously he's a must start. He wouldn't be wide receiver 1 in our ranks. If Darnell Mooney was in, he'd be closer to the back end of the top 10, like right in that Brian Thomas Jr., Mike Evans, Puka Nacua range. But man, I mean, if Mooney sits, this is an absolute smash spot for Drake London in a pretty good matchup against the Bucs as well. Obviously, Bijan projects really well. I think he probably actually should be running back 1 over CMC, who we're going to get to in a second. The other just note here for the Falcons, a couple notes really quick before we jump to the Bucs. Michael Penix, I think, is getting underrated just in general as a pretty big QB upgrade. This actually leads to my last point here for the Falcons that I'll leave off with before we jump to the Buccaneers side of this game. And by the way, the Falcons in this game, they are 1.5 point underdogs at home versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I do think the Falcons take this one, partially because I think Michael Penix is one of the more underrated QBs in the NFL right now. Like, I think he's going to be an upgrade over Kirk Cousins. And I was pretty excited about Kirk Cousins' upgrade last year, incorrectly so, especially for Kyle Pitts, who I'll get to in a second. But Penix, he had a really, really low touchdown rate last year, 1.5% touchdown rate. He, again, small sample. He only threw 3 touchdowns, but he actually played really well. High completion percentage and looked really good. 11.8, 10.9 average yards per attempt, air yards per attempt. I think he was better than people remember because he didn't score very many fantasy points because he had a very, very low touchdown rate. League average touchdown rate's close to 4.2%. He was at 1.5%. That usually regresses towards the mean. I think that's going to be big for London and Bijan and Mooney when he comes back. And it might be big, dare I say, for Kyle Pitts too. And yeah, I was in on Kyle Pitts last season. And yeah, I was in on him this season before. And I really haven't been super in on him this season, like most people. But I do wonder if he's getting a bit overlooked here heading into this season, especially if Mooney ends up missing some time. He's the wide receiver 2 on this team if Mooney sits. They don't have a legit second receiver on this team. It's part of the reason we know Drake London's floor is close to a 30% target share. We saw Kyle Pitts do something we almost never see in his rookie season, in the most difficult position to play as a rookie. Over 1,000 yards that rookie season. And we haven't really seen great quarterback play for Pitts And maybe Penix is the right match. Maybe Penix is the upgrade we've been waiting for Kyle Pitts, and it wasn't Kirk Cousins. Pitts didn't do much in the games with Penix last year, under 4 points in 2 of those 3 games. He did have one touchdown in one of those games, but he was playing under half the snaps in those games, under 50% of the snaps for Kyle Pitts in those games. Like, just really weird usage. They really have to figure it out with Pitts. And we didn't see a full role from Kyle Pitts in the Michael Penix games last year. Again, under 50% all 3 of these games that we're looking at here in the Walter Picks app. So yeah, maybe it is the year for the Kyle Pitts breakout. I'm not willing to rule it out quite yet until we see some real sample size and some real playing time with Michael Penix. All right, on to, we're not starting him in week 1, obviously, but yeah, he projects as tight end 12 among the tight ends remaining. Like, I'd start Strange over him, but if you went late round tight end, like, you could do worse than Kyle Pitts. We got Kyle Pitts projected ahead of Colson Loveland, for example. I actually like that pairing if you went late round tight end. All right, on to the Buccaneers. I mean, I don't think a more just like smash, must start, don't overthink it. You got to start Emeka Egbuka here in week 1. Guys, last year, I think you can really simplify this down. Sometimes you can oversimplify stuff in the NFL and in fantasy. I actually don't even think this is that much of an oversimplification, though. Guys, Chris Godwin, if I just pull him up really quick, he's obviously out this week and not really expected to play in the first 4 games, even though he's not on IR. He was the wide receiver 2 in points per game last year. And he was playing most of his snaps from the slot. That is the role that Egbuka is going to play on this team, a slot role, the primary slot receiver, in a role that produced the wide receiver 2 in points per game last year. Egbuka, an elite prospect, in an incredible role, and his primary slot competition is injured and out. On top of that, Jalen McMillan is out. He might not play this whole season. You know, the neck injuries can be really bad. You know, hopefully he comes back and is okay. But wouldn't be shocking to see Jalen McMillan, who actually had a pretty strong rookie season, miss the whole year. And so it's Evans and Egbuka suddenly in what was kind of a crowded receiver room before. And Egbuka is the one playing in the slot in a smash matchup versus the Falcons. This game being played in a dome in Atlanta, one of the higher over-unders of the week. You got to start Egbuka, guys. The floor is really, really strong, and the ceiling is top 10, top 5 wide receiver, especially in PPR leagues. He projects as the wide receiver 13 right now. He is projected behind Mike Evans, who, like, I think is one of the more underappreciated receivers in NFL history. Like, just a for sure Hall of Famer, which is extremely hard to say for anyone. But I think he's going on, his 11th straight 1,000-yard season this year, which is almost definitely going to hit, especially if Godwin misses a month plus of the season. Just a super high touchdown upside, too. I think Baker Mayfield's one of the more overrated quarterbacks in fantasy heading into this year because his touchdown rate was so high. Last year, just an unsustainable touchdown rate. 7.2% touchdown rate was the second highest in the league, only behind Lamar Jackson last season. And it is almost impossible. We almost never see quarterbacks repeat 7+% touchdown rates. That's really the only reason I think he's getting a little overrated. I don't think he's going to be a top 5 QB in points per game again, like he was last year, especially with the Godwin injury. But yeah, you're smashing him into the lineup today against the Falcons. Definitely a good environment today if you drafted him as your starter. Mike Evans, an absolute must start. Buck Irving, an absolute must start. Emeka Egbuka, an absolute must start. Cade Otton, he could have a sneaky role as well. He was dealing with an injury, off the injury report now, though, groin injury. So he'll play. He probably will play almost every single snap. Not a must start, though. And honestly, I would probably start Brenton Strange over him, even though he projects a tiny bit worse. Curious to see what the Rashad White, Sean Tucker situation is, too. There's been some coach speak around Sean Tucker having a bigger role. But yeah, you're starting really all the studs here. And just do not bench Egbuka. I'm going to answer so many start-sit questions here coming up momentarily, and I'm going to tell so many people today to start Emeka Egbuka. All right, let's get to the next game here. And again, I'm taking the Falcons in this one, partially for a lot of that stuff I said about Michael Penix. All right, we're on to the late window now. That was the early window of the games today. Cardinals Saints, Dolphins Colts, Raiders Patriots, Steelers Jets, Giants Commanders, Panthers Jaguars, Bengals, Browns, Bucks, Falcons. What a time to be alive, man. That's going to be a fantastic window of games. And the late window is actually pretty fun as well. We got 4 games here in the late window today, starting out with the 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. Let me pull up the running back ranks as we talk about this one. And I don't know if there was a single thing that I wanted less to pop up on my phone than what popped up on my phone yesterday with Christian McCaffrey. Let me pull up the 49ers here on the YouTube live. By the way, guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, helps me out a ton, way more than you could possibly realize. Takes a few seconds. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button, come to the YouTube live. It's a better viewing experience. I can share a screen. I will answer hundreds of comments from both live streams here when I get through finishing my takes on every single game. I like to start these streams before I dive into the comments, talking through every single game, every single relevant player in every single game. Then I'll do the free player props, the DraftKings lineup, and then we will get through hundreds of comments. Okay. McCaffrey projects as running back 1 in the app right now, in the Walter Picks app projections. And all signs are pointing towards Christian McCaffrey playing in week 1, but he pops up with a calf. Of all things, a calf days before the season starts. And it is so tough not to have flashbacks, man, to last season. And at least we were reported, a couple days before we were last year, where he played on Monday Night Football. And the report came an hour before the Monday Night Football game. But Christian McCaffrey, guys, the reason I've been so in on him this offseason is he's been fully healthy. He's been 100% healthy every single day until 1 day ago, the day before the season. And, it would be easy if they were like giving him some consistent rest throughout the preseason, just to chalk this up to, okay, they're just, doing a little maintenance, ahead of the season for CMC. But no, guys, he has not been limited in a single practice all season. Now, this is a new, aggravated, new calf situation for CMC. It is very notable. And I'm pretty concerned here for CMC after the Achilles tendonitis last year. But guys, if CMC plays, you're putting him in your fantasy lineup, and he's going to project as a top 3 running back almost regardless of situation. Every single season we've seen Christian McCaffrey play more than 10 games, he has been top 2 in fantasy points per game at the running back position. This is a guy that puts up wide receiver numbers at the running back position and elite running back numbers at the same time. I mean, just not a normal fantasy football running back here in Christian McCaffrey, arguably the greatest fantasy football running back of all time. So, man, I mean, everyone just do a quick prayer for CMC's calf. Hopefully he's playing today. It sounds like he will, but that's another one of the injuries. Obviously, we got to watch closely. And I don't think there was a worse possible report to get about CMC than what we got about 24 hours ago. George Kittle, he projects as tight end 1, and why not? He was the tight end 1 in fantasy football last year. George Kittle led all tight ends in points per game, and he was getting drafted this whole offseason after Brock Bowers, like 2-3 rounds after Brock Bowers. He was getting drafted a full round or 2 after Trey McBride. And I get the bull case for Bowers and McBride, but at cost, I mean, Kittle was an absolute smash pick in fantasy. This team moves on from Deebo Samuel. Jawan Jennings really hasn't practiced like all preseason. He's going to be playing today. And then Ricky Pearsall. Would it be that shocking for Kittle to lead this offense in touchdowns, to be one of the, if not the top receiver on this team? The biggest difference between George Kittle and Brock Bowers and Trey McBride is George Kittle is the only tight end in that group that's had a long history of being an elite touchdown scorer. That's why he was tight end 1 last year, despite having worse volume metrics than Trey McBride and Brock Bowers. Absolute smash option and pick in fantasy at his round 4, round 5 draft cost in comparison to where Bowers and McBride went. I mean, just such a bankable player here in fantasy. Projects his tight end 1 right out of the gates. Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings, these guys project pretty well too, especially if CMC doesn't play, guys. Kittle, Pearsall, Jennings, they're going to be massive winners because the backup running backs to CMC, Brian Robinson and Isaac Guerrero, like these are not receiving backs. Guerrero might actually be the preferred receiving back over B-Rob, but these guys are not going to command the type of target share that CMC will command. Either way, though, Pearsall, really a must start here in week 1. With Jawan Jennings like barely practicing this whole preseason, he was dealing with a calf injury himself. It was like really unclear the whole preseason. Was it a real calf injury for Jawan Jennings or was it contract related? They got the contract stuff figured out. Not an extension, but some added incentives. He'll be a free agent at the end of this season now. But I think the calf injury was real. It's like almost impossible to know. But it seemed like the calf injury was real, on top of the contract stuff being real. But apparently he's at full steam and going to play a normal role in this game. But I definitely feel better about Pearsall than Jennings. And both are pretty good starts here in a matchup against the Seahawks. Man, everyone just let's just do a quick prayer for CMC's calf, please. I think if it's not Brenton Strange, McCaffrey might be one of my most drafted players this fantasy season. The other big question I have on the Seahawks side of this game, I mean, a decent amount, honestly. I'm pretty skeptical about Cooper Kupp. He was on my do not draft list. He looked washed at the end of last season. Was that injury related or was that age related for Cooper Kupp last season? Projects as wide receiver 37 on the week. Pull up the wide receiver ranks again. I think I got them up. I got the running back ranks up here on the YouTube Live. Pull up the wide receiver ranks here again. They are. But Cooper Kupp really struggled down the stretch last season, and he was out there playing, seeing like actually some targets, I think, as well. Yeah, he had 3 targets in these final games of last season, but he was playing. He was out there over 75% of the snaps down the stretch in these final 4 games. Last season, he went 0 points, 5.4 points, 3.9 points, Cooper Kupp down the stretch. And to me, it's just so telling that the Rams didn't try very hard to bring him back, right? They didn't necessarily let him walk. You know, it's possible they made an offer. The Seahawks made a better offer. But the fact that they moved on and clearly upgraded, I think, to Devontae Adams, I think is telling for Cooper Kupp, who is at 32 years old. I didn't mention it with Tyreek Hill, but part of the reason I'm definitely nervous about Tyreek, there's not a good history of 30-plus-year-old receivers coming off their worst statistical seasons bouncing back. Like, really rare do you see 30-plus-year-old receivers coming off their worst statistical season bounce back. And that's what we're banking on here from Kupp and for Tyreek. Not a must start here, Cooper Kupp in week 1, but definitely a guy I'm watching closely to see what his role ends up looking like and how he meshes with JSN, who I think is extremely underrated heading into week 1. I think we'll probably look back in a few months and into next season and be discussing, is JSN a first-round pick in fantasy football? Like, I don't think he's very different than the other receivers that were going at the back end of the first round, beginning of the second round. Is he that much different than Amon-Ra and Puka and Neighbors and Brian Thomas? Like, I think he's in that tier of receiver. And this is going to be the first real season we see no DK Metcalf, no Tyler Lockett. They added Cooper Kupp, who, like we just talked about, might be washed. I mean, JSN could absolutely smash this season. And a lot of it will come down to, is Sam Darnold going to be able to sustain this offense? Because Sam Darnold also looked washed down the stretch of last season. It was a tale of 2 seasons for Darnold. He had okay fantasy games here, but he really cratered down the stretch of the season after like being in the MVP conversation for the first 3 months of the year. And then, really cratered in the playoffs as well against the Rams. I do have some hope though that the Seahawks can scheme around Sam Darnold like the Vikings did, and JSN will still absolutely smash this year. And then at the running back position, Kenneth Walker versus Zach Sharp. Kenneth barely practiced this whole preseason. We've seen what Zach Sharp can do when given a big role. I don't think it's like obvious who the lead back on this team is going to be. It's probably Kenneth. And I think the ceiling is higher for Kenneth. But this really could be like a pretty even split between Sharp and Kenneth as the Seahawks try to keep Kenneth Walker healthy. He struggled with injuries really throughout his entire career so far. And this whole preseason as well. Not a guy that is coming in with a clean bill of health this year. So Sharp, like one of my favorite 0 running back targets this year was Zach Charbonnet. All right, that's the Seahawks. And yeah, I'm taking the 49ers in this game. Brock Purdy, by the way, a pretty strong start as well. He projects as our QB5 of the QBs left. Just a really high floor for Brock. Even if McCaffrey isn't at a full role or doesn't end up playing, like this should be a good environment for Brock. He's had actually sneaky rushing numbers the past couple of seasons too. And with Kittle, Pearsall, Jennings, I think you can feel pretty safe about the floor, at least, for Brock Purdy in this game. Another game here, I believe, that's projected for some amount of rain. Again, I'm not concerned about that. We will get to the Weatherman Sam report here coming up again in a second. But yeah, there will be some rain in this 49ers Seahawks game. Same thing with the Panthers Jags game, the Jets Steelers game, and most concerning ones, the Patriots Raiders game, Titans Broncos as well. But again, not overly concerned about rain. It's not going to be super windy, which is a lot more concerning. So I'm taking the 49ers in this spot. On to the next game here, the next late window game, the Titans and the Broncos. And I think this is probably going to be the most common survivor pool pick is going to be this Broncos team beating the Titans. They're the biggest favorites of the day. The Broncos 8.5-point favorites at home. In comparison, the Commanders, they're only 6.5-point favorites at home versus the Giants. The Cardinals, who were my survivor pool pick, and I'm just seeing that Kyler Murray's questionable with an illness, which honestly does make me want to pivot off them a tiny bit. With the survivor pick, here to the Broncos or to the Commanders. And I don't hate the Bengals either against the Browns. I'd be really shocked if they lost that game as well. But yeah, I probably would go Broncos or Commanders over them in a survival pool pick situation. But the Broncos are probably going to be the most common survival pool pick because they're the biggest favorites of the week. And I'm a little bit nervous about them survivor pool wise. Let me pull up the Titans versus Broncos. I think Cam Ward is one of the more underrated quarterbacks heading into the season. He wasn't like this generational prospect like we've seen with the first overall pick many years, but Cam Ward's got a legit ceiling, guys. And I think a pretty good floor out of the gates. And the other thing for this Titans team that is like really clear is this is an immediate QB upgrade than what they've had. I mean, Will Levis was an absolute dumpster fire last year. I mean, this has been some of the worst quarterback play we've seen over the last couple of years here for the Tennessee Titans. So immediately this is going to be an upgrade with Cam Ward, even though he is a rookie. And I think the ceiling, like quarterback play wise, is just so much higher all of a sudden for the Titans. I don't want to underrate this Titans team. I think this game is going to be more competitive than this 8.5 point spread. On the Broncos side of the ball, I expect some of the most common start-sit questions I'm going to get today, and I'm going to get hundreds here coming up shortly, is RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. And guys, the answer is start both of them. We were talking in our Discord. If you're a Walter Pick subscriber, by the way, guys, you got to join the Discord. I'm chatting constantly in there. Our whole projections team at Walter Picks is constantly chatting in there. We got super sharp people in there, constantly talking fantasy football and props. And you can get premium access to those channels in Discord if you're a Walter Picks app subscriber. And if you are not sure about the Walter Picks app subscription, by the way, guys, there's a 7-day free trial right now. There's absolutely no excuse to not be trying out the Walter Picks app. You're actively not trying to win your fantasy league or player props if you haven't checked out the Walter Picks app yet. But there was some questions in there about Dobbins and RJ Harvey. I know there's going to be a lot of Dobbins and RJ Harvey start-sits today. And it makes sense because this is a pretty ambiguous backfield. It's going to be a split backfield, but a pretty good game environment in a pretty good offensive situation and running back situation. Sean Payton backfields have been top 5 in target share for 3 straight seasons. This is part of the reason both these guys were good fantasy picks and why this is a good start-sit question to need to ask. And yeah, I think starting Dobbins over Harvey, if I have to choose straight up, I lean Dobbins over Harvey. I think he's a little bit safer. I think he's a slightly safer bet to get the receiving work here in week 1. Probably a slightly safer bet to get the goal line work here in week 1. But both these guys are good starts. And in situations where you can start them both, I think it's a really, really safe move. These guys will combine for more than 25 fantasy points today. They are 8.5 point favorites in a backfield that's ranked top 5 in target share for 3 straight seasons. Like these guys are going to smash this season combined. And if you can just start both, if you have both, I don't hate that. I don't hate that situation at all. You know, it seems like I won't go as far to say it's the Gibbs Montgomery type situation that we've seen in the past, but that's also been kind of a strong move in fantasy, just starting both those guys. All right, let me go to the wide receiver ranks here. I see some people asking for the wide receiver ranks. Just talking about Dobbins and Harvey, both top 24 running backs, though, but both solid running back 2s here. And at least one of these guys will smash. And combined, probably going to be pretty happy starting both these guys. Again, they're 8.5 point favorites. I think this game, again, will be closer than people expect, but the Broncos should still win, and they should still be playing with a lead in this game. Another game here, by the way, with some rain projected. This game in Denver. Bo Nix, I think it's like a slightly sketchier start than you would want if you drafted Bo Nix and you're just shoving him to the starting lineup. I'd rather start Brock Purdy than Bo Nix. I'd rather start Caleb Williams than Bo Nix. I'd rather start Drake May than Bo Nix, Jordan Love than Bo Nix, CJ Stroud than Bo Nix. I mean, Bo Nix, just talking through that, probably a bench in a lot of situations. I would not start Justin Fields over Bo Nix. Saw that one in the TikTok live. No, I'm not doing that. Sutton is still a start, I think, here versus the Titans, but not a great pass game environment here as an 8.5 point favorite versus the Titans. On the Titans side of the ball, though, I mentioned it earlier. I do think Cam Ward enters the season as one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the league. I think this whole offense is a bit underrated with the QB upgrade that they very clearly got because of just how bad the QB play has been on this team. Tony Pollard's an absolute smash right now to open the season. Tajay Spears on IR. And the other backup running back for this team too, who some people were excited about, I think Khalil Mullings. He's questionable in this game too, dealing with an injury. I mean, it's gonna be Pollard and Julius Chestnut. Pollard's like just locked in for at least 20 touches in this game. Gonna have a good receiving role and gonna be on like a sneaky offensive upgrade team here heading into week 1. And the Broncos pass pass defense is obviously really strong with Pat Surtain too. I mean, Pollard could flirt with 30 touches today, and it wouldn't be that crazy. Like just a really, really high floor for Pollard here in week 1, an absolute must start with Tony Pollard. He's really going to be a must start every single one of these first 4 weeks of the season. Calvin Ridley, not a must start. Definitely more the must bench territory. Our air yards king. Last season, he was the wide receiver 3 in air yards per game. Calvin Ridley, last season. This is a guy that I'm very in on this fantasy season. And in some spots, I will start him. In one of my deeper leagues, I have to choose between Calvin Ridley and Brenton Strange. A pretty tough choice, in my opinion. And I think I'm going to end up going with Ridley. Projects just a bit better. And obviously, receiver versus tight end. Usually I'm going to go with the receiver there. But yeah, up against Pat Surtain week 1, worst possible week 1 matchup here for Calvin Ridley. He's definitely not. Yeah, I'm still starting him, I think, over Brenton Strange, but that's where he's at. That's the line he's at. I'd much prefer a lot of the other options you probably have over Calvin Ridley in fantasy here in week 1. Still think the target volume could be there. They're going to have to try to move Calvin Ridley around a lot, though, and get him away from Pat Surtain. The other very curious thing, I think, on this team is like, who's the actual wide receiver 2? We're projecting Tyler Lockett, and really Chig Okonkwo is projecting as the wide receiver 2 for us on this team right now, but then it's Lockett, Alec Imanor, who's a rookie wide receiver we actually liked a lot, seems to have locked in an outside boundary role on this team. Van Jefferson, it really could be a rotation of receivers outside of Calvin Ridley. Just not a lot of target competition for Ridley here heading into week 1. And the Broncos, honestly, they are maybe less sketchy than the Cardinals with this Kyler Murray illness. I don't want to overreact to, but yeah, I don't think this is that sketchy of a survivor pool pick here with the Denver Broncos as the biggest favorites of week 1. All right, on to the third late window game. We're almost through all the games. Then we'll get to the player props. We'll get to the Draftkings lineup. We'll get to all of the comments. Shout out to everybody in this live stream right now, guys. Seriously, appreciate you all so much. And can't believe I get to call this a part of my job. A shout out to all the OGs who have been here multiple years. Shout out to all the new viewers. Shout out to all of the Walter Picks subscribers. The best way you could possibly support me, the Walter Picks brand, and the best way you could possibly support your chances of winning in fantasy and player props is subscribing to the Walter Picks app. We do have a 7-day free trial going on right now as well. All right, Lions Packers. This is a really, really fun one. Definitely 2 Super Bowl contenders in this matchup here in week 1. The Lions were just short of the Super Bowl a year ago. Waymo Jamo, one of the big pieces of news out of this morning. Waymo Jamo gets paid. And this is what the smart teams do. They pay their star players before last year of the contract, before you get into the Micah Parsons situation. The salaries are only going up. So the smart teams know to get ahead of it rather than fall behind of the players that they know they want part of their team long term. So Waymo Jamo signs a huge contract extension this morning, and you got to start him here in week 1. The Packers were good against receivers last season, but there's not very many players with the type of ceiling that Waymo Jamo has every single week. They've talked all offseason about getting Jameson Williams more involved in the offense, larger volume in the offense. And it's very possible with a new offensive coordinator now with Ben Johnson gone. And definitely one of the biggest things to watch out for this Lions team is what's the actual impact of the Ben Johnson loss. They replaced him with someone internally that seemingly isn't going to change maybe that much. I think there's going to be some impact here from the loss of Ben Johnson. I'm most concerned about Sam Laporta. But the other thing to definitely watch for is the Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery split similar to the past? This could really, really benefit Gibbs. At worst, it's the same, and Gibbs is the same top 5 running back in PPR that he was last year. A lot of people had Gibbs ranked as the running back 1 this season. I personally was drafting Bijan ahead of him. I was personally drafting Saquon ahead of him, but then it was Gibbs, man, as the running back 3 for me in drafts this season. And I think there's a real argument that he could have been the first overall pick. He was the running back 2 last year. He's only 23 and a half years old. And he's in one of the better offensive environments, one of the best offensive lines. And maybe with this OC change, he sees more work. Like, he's got a lot of room for a larger workload. Only a 45% rush share last year, 12% target share. Neither of those were in the top 12 in the NFL. He sees a top 12 rush share or target share. Never mind a top 5 one. Like, he could easily break fantasy football. And I think it is more possible now with an offensive coordinator change. But yeah, you're starting Gibbs. Obviously, you're starting Monroe. I think you're starting Sam Laporta in most spots as well. He was on my do not draft list because unsustainable touchdown rate. We talked about the Baker Mayfield touchdown rate. Jared Goff is right there with him. He was right behind Baker Mayfield with 7.1% touchdown rate. Almost no chance that he matches that this season. Now, not a guy I think you should be high on in fantasy for the season. Not the worst option here in week 1. But yeah, not a guy I have on any of my teams. And part of the reason I'm scared about Laporta, he was a big benefactor of that touchdown rate. He was tight end 5 in touchdown rate last season, Sam Laporta, but he still only finished as tight end 9 on the season. Like, we just saw the outlier touchdown season for Sam Laporta, and he still didn't win fantasy leagues. What is the real ceiling here for Laporta, especially with the loss of his offensive coordinator? All right, so we're starting the receivers. We're starting Gibbs. Monty is startable, but not a must start. And I do think you're like a little bit riskier with potentially a lower role, smaller role than we've seen in the past with the new offensive coordinator. All right, the Packers. Jordan Love is I think, a pretty sneaky fantasy start this week. Projects as a QB 10. I would start Jordan Love over Bo Nix if I had to make that call. I think the Packers will throw more than people anticipate this season. But it's also like already shaping up as an injury-riddled season for the Packers. Jaden Reed is going to be playing through an injury to start the season, a foot injury. He's technically questionable. He's been seen hobbling around in practice. Matthew Golden is going to be thrust into the wide receiver 1 role. A lot of people thought he was going to be the wide receiver 1 anyways. Is he set up to fail here? Matthew Golden, thrown into a role that he really shouldn't be in. This is a guy that never had over 1,000 receiving yards in college. He wasn't early declared receiver, so he played 1 less year in college than most prospects. He's really gotten all positive reports, though, and definitely is startable here in week 1. I think he might be getting set up to fail a little bit, which is too high of expectations for the type of prospect he really was. Josh Jacobs, an absolute locked-in top 12 running back. Marshawn Lloyd has just not been able to stay healthy. It's probably going to be Christopher Brooks and Emmanuel Wilson mixing in behind him. Tucker Kraft, I also think, is like a really sneaky start. With the Jaden Reed injury, if this team does end up throwing more, like I kind of expect, because if you guys remember too, Jordan Love got hurt early in last season with an ankle injury, and then they suddenly were extremely run heavy with the backup QB situation that they had. And then even when Jordan Love came back, he was playing through that ankle injury for a lot of the season. I think they end up being more run heavy than they wanted to. And so we might see them revert back into a pass heavy game script. And Tucker Kraft, man, was extremely efficient when they got him the ball. If you're a Packers fan, they got to get Tucker Kraft more involved. They've been talking about it all offseason. And I wouldn't be shocked if we see Tucker Kraft finish as a top 5 tight end in fantasy. I think that's his ceiling. Projects as tight end 10 here in week 1. I am going to start him over Brenton Strange. I think that's the line for me. Then I'm going Strange. I start Kraft and Strange over Evan Ingram. But yeah, pretty good environment here, I think, for Kraft and Matthew Golden here in week 1. Both startable for sure. And I think Jordan Love's to start as well. All right, last late window game here. And the Lions Packers spread really quick too. This game is only a 1.5 point spread to the Packers. At home, they are favored versus the Lions in this spot. I'd probably lean towards the Lions in this spot. Micah Parsons should play, but not probably a full role yet. All right, Texans and Rams. Final late window game before we get to the 2 primetime games. Then we get to the props, the DraftKings lineup, and all of the comments. The Texans are 3.5 point underdogs playing in Los Angeles against the Rams here. CJ Stroud feels like one of the most underrated quarterbacks heading into the season because just last year, CJ Stroud was getting drafted as like QB5, QB6 in fantasy drafts. And suddenly he was just undrafted in every single league. Projects as a top 12 quarterback here in week 1. Another quarterback I think I would play over Bo Nix here in week 1. A pretty good dome environment, semi-dome, no rain obviously in this game. It's like an indoor-outdoor stadium, but we'll call it a dome. Christian Kirk picks up an injury like just days ago before the season. Nico Collins could easily be the wide receiver 1 this year and projects for one of the best target shares in the league right out of the gates, especially with this Christian Kirk injury. This team is not going to be able to run. Part of the reason I think Stroud and Nico are pretty good bets in fantasy at their costs, their respective costs, and both probably like a little bit underrated even. This is the worst offensive line in the NFL. They were maybe the worst offensive line in the NFL last year, and somehow talent-wise, they got worse. Like they thought they had cultural issues within the offensive line. So they just got rid of everyone and brought in like no actual known talented offensive linemen this offseason. I mean, really, really curious to see how this goes for them. It's hard to get much worse, but it also looks like it's going to be tough for them to get much better than last year. Joe Mixon is out. He might not play this whole season. Christian Kirk is now out. I mean, Nico Collins is like similar to Drake London, just like such a high floor of volume you can project for Nico Collins. I also think both Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, like now suddenly sleepers with Christian Kirk out. Both these guys played on the same college team, and were both prospects that we liked a lot in our rookie analysis. Noel projects as just a pure slot receiver. He really only played in the slot in college, where Jaden Higgins could play inside and outside, more of a bigger body type, like more like a Nico Collins. But Noel might actually play the most of these two with the injury to Christian Kirk. Neither starts, obviously, here in week 1, but I think both kind of sneaky with the Christian Kirk injury. It might just like steal the role potentially from Kirk before he comes back. I really don't think you can start Nick Chubb. You don't want to start any of these running backs with this offensive line situation, plus they're projected to lose in this game. On the Rams side of the ball, will Matthew Stafford's back hold up? I think this is like just the biggest question on this team in general. Pretty big systemic risk for fantasy purposes with Matthew Stafford's back injury that he like just started practicing like a week ago from. And I'm most concerned about just like he's going to have to take some hits. And how is the back going to hold up when he's taking legit hits? Fortunately for all the other players on this team, Jimmy G, I think, is one of the better backup QB situations in the league. But like Stafford has just historically peppered his top receiver. And in this case, this year, I think top receivers with extremely high target shares. Like we can just lock Puka and Adams in for 25, 30+% target shares. There's just not many guys in the NFL you can say this for. We just talked about it with Nico. We talked about it with London. There's not very many players that you can do this for. And part of the reason we can do it for Puka and Adams is Matthew Stafford, who's just always done this with receivers of this caliber. Both Puka and Adams project as top 12 wide receivers this week. But yeah, will Matthew Stafford's back hold up? I think that is the biggest question for this team. Kyren Williams landed on my do not draft list this year. If you drafted him, though, you're starting him here in week 1. I am very, very skeptical that Kyren Williams will lead the NFL in rush share again. Guys, no running back had more carries than Kyren Williams last season. Led the entire league in carries. Had 2 runs over 20 yards. He had the most chances of runs over 20 yards in the NFL last year, and he had 2 of them. He is not creating explosive plays. He's also really not getting targets. The Rams have ranked near dead last in running back target share for multiple years in a row now. An 8% target share is not what I want in PPR leagues with my second or third round picks. I think Blake Corum probably will mix in more this season, and we'll probably get a pretty good sense of that right out of the gates. If Corum ends up stealing any of the receiving work and any of the goal line work, I mean, I think Kyren Williams has almost no chance to pay off at his draft cost. And again, when I draft, I want league winners. And Kyren Williams is not a league winning player. He is a safe floor, volume dependent back who doesn't catch passes. I won't go as far to call him a Zamir White, but I mean, he's honestly not like that far off, especially with the Stafford back concerns. See, I honestly, I like the Texans as underdogs in this one, but I definitely really concerned about the offensive line there. This could end up being like more of a defensive battle than people expect. Yeah, we're starting Kyren, we're starting Puka and Adams for as long as Stafford's starting. I think Tyler Higbee also, I just want to shout, like might be a very, really might be getting slept on heading into the season. He played only 3 games last year and then played 2 playoff games. In his final 3 games, the only games where he played more than a third of the snaps, we only saw 1 game over an 80% snap share for Higbee last season. Like he missed the whole season because he got almost the whole season because he tore his ACL the season before. His final 3 games, he went 15.6 points, 11 points, 18.4 points. Scored 3 touchdowns in like his very limited playing time last year. And his final game of the season against the Eagles in the snow in the playoffs, 7 catches, 54 yards and a touchdown. And people are excited about Terrence Ferguson. I'm excited about him, but I think he's more of a dynasty stash, and Higbee might actually be like a waiver target if Brenton Strange doesn't work out for me. All right, on to the 2 primetime games. This is easily the best game of the week. And like, if I were to bet, the Super Bowl winner is probably playing in this game this season. This year's Super Bowl winner, it'll be the Ravens or the Bills. I think they're 2 really good bets to win the Super Bowl, especially to be the Super Bowl team from the AFC this year. I think these are probably the 2 favorites in the AFC. the two MVP candidates from last year. We know who the real MVP was last year, not the guy who got the award, but the guy who was the most valuable player and had statistically one of the greatest seasons of all time and definitely the best season last year. And that was Lamar Jackson. But there's voter fatigue. There's an overweighting to the final games of the season. And so Josh Allen ended up winning. He had a great season too, just not the best season, like pretty clearly. And let's just do a quick comparison here between Josh Allen and Lamar, just to remind ourselves of the stats from last season. If we look at, this is all the stats from this year, so we're not seeing them here in the app right now. But yeah, Lamar beat him in basically every single category. And we did project Lamar as QB1 over him, but it's close. This game is going to be like a playoff game. If you guys remember back to last season, in the first opening game, it was the Chiefs and the Ravens, and Lamar treated that game like a playoff game. He had 122 rushing yards on 16 carries, a 50% rush share in the opening game last year. I think we see something similar again this year from both Lamar and Allen, running like it's a playoff game. Now, they're going to treat this like a playoff game, and that's going to be amazing, obviously, for fantasy football. Both guys are going to absolutely smash if that ends up being the case and have like extreme rushing upside and rushing touchdown upside. You're starting Mark Andrews for sure. Isaiah Likely is out. Mark Andrews obviously ended the season, the playoff season, on a rough note last year and started the season really rough last year too. But he was an elite touchdown scorer last year. Led all tight ends in touchdown rate. He scored on almost one out of every 5 catches last season. Almost a 20% touchdown rate. I don't think he matches that this season, but with Likely out, he's a top 5 tight end. Projects his tight end 4. The only other tight end outside of the elite 3 that I'm playing over Njoku today is Mark Andrews. Derrick Henry, top 10 option. Zay Flowers, really a must start. You're going to want pieces of this game. And Rashad Bateman's definitely a little sketchier. We'll see if I get any Rashad Bateman start sits here coming up momentarily when I get to hundreds of start sit questions in the comments. On the Bills side of the game, definitely one of my bigger questions here is James Cook underrated or overrated heading into the season? Because on one side, James Cook, he was a top 10 running back last year. Was extremely efficient, is in one of the best offenses in the league, is like a sneakily good receiving back. But he just doesn't seem likely to sustain his touchdown scoring from last year. He was running back 5 in touchdown rate. He matched Derrick Henry in touchdowns last year after having just 2 the season before. And a lot of these touchdowns came outside of the red zone where he's making big plays. I think there's also just a lot less repeatable. And all 3 running backs are going to play on top of Josh Allen, stealing rushing work. I think he's like an underrated talent, but an overrated fantasy option for this reason. Not a guy I drafted a ton of this year, even though they got the contract stuff figured out. Projects as running back 20. Just never a guy that is going to project great if you give him an average touchdown rate or slightly above average touchdown rate versus what he had last year, and you are projecting all 3 running backs plus Josh Allen to play and have a big role in the run game. Kincaid, not a guy I feel great starting in this spot either. The Bills are going to spread the ball around a lot. Dawson Knox is going to play alongside Dalton Kincaid. There's really no reason to expect a hugely different role for Kincaid last year. Kincaid did not have a single game, guys, over 13.5 PPR points last season. Not one. Like, just didn't win a single week for you in fantasy last season. Going to be really tough to trust again. I'm starting Brenton Strange over him in week 1. Khalil Shakir, he's been battling an ankle injury. He is cleared to play. Keon Coleman's been dealing with a groin injury. He's cleared to play as well. I think more of a floor option here with Khalil Shakir and more of a ceiling option with Keon Coleman. And Keon Coleman's the guy I'm most excited for if he can take that year 2 leap. When you compare the difference in cost between Ricky Pearsall, who everyone's super excited about, we have project pretty well, to year 2 Keon Coleman, who nobody's really excited about, was getting drafted like 6, 7, 8 rounds after Pearsall in drafts. Are they that different, really? Like exciting year 2 guys that could take a leap here after the rookie season? Keon Coleman started to break out last year and then got hurt. He had back-to-back games over 16 fantasy points and then got hurt. And then it just never really came back and sustained any level of success. But these were like the games where he actually started playing and seeing targets. This was the most targets he saw all season, 7 and 7 here. I think Coleman's got a way higher ceiling than Shakir. But yeah, I think a lot of these receivers will probably mix in. Not a great receiving situation for fantasy. I'm taking the Ravens, by the way, in that game. I think the Ravens like clearly were better than the Bills last year, just statistically. And the same thing goes for Lamar versus Allen. This game is in Buffalo. And the Bills are still 1.5 point underdogs in this game. Massive 50-point over-under. Don't be scared to get pieces of this game in fantasy. And then the final game of the week that I'm extremely excited for, the Bears and the Vikings. I don't know if I made a bigger best ball bet. I did over 400 best ball drafts this offseason. I know I'm sick. I start drafting in May. I did over 400 best ball drafts this offseason. I don't think I made a bigger bet than a bet I just made overall on the Bears environment this offseason. Every year we see these massive offensive shifts get overrated from one year to the next. Last year it was Saquon going from just insanely different environment, from a bottom 5 Giants offensive line to a top 3, top 2, maybe top 1 Eagles offensive line. And Saquon smashes, finishes the running back 1, and wins fantasy leagues, despite getting drafted like in the second round or end of the first round in drafts, despite that massive offensive environment shift. And I think that the massive offensive environment shift this year is the Bears. They're going from one of the worst coaching staffs in the league, not even watching film, with their first overall pick rookie quarterback, to Ben Johnson, who's been top 5 in points scored each of the last 3 seasons. And it's obviously not all Ben Johnson, but a lot of the credit does have to go to Ben Johnson. Like some of the credit has got to go to Ben Johnson. So they're going from a bottom 5 coaching staff to maybe a top 5 coaching staff. We haven't seen Ben Johnson be a head coach, so like there's some volatility there, but at a minimum, it's a coaching upgrade. On top of that, the offensive line was actually really bad for the Bears last year. And a lot of people blame Caleb Williams for playing hero ball and holding onto the ball too much longer. But guys, this is why we have advanced stats. If you look at the pressure rate for Caleb Williams, it was bottom 10 in the NFL last year. That's like the percentage of plays that they're pressured under 3 seconds. Has nothing to do with holding onto the ball. This Bears offensive line was bottom 10 in the NFL last year. And sure, maybe he held onto the ball in addition to that, but they made several offensive line upgrades. It was like the main point, main goal for Ben Johnson this offseason was improve the offensive line and surround Caleb Williams with even more talent. That's exactly what he did. They brought in at least 3 new starting offensive linemen. They drafted Colson Loveland, who's a really strong receiving tight end. They drafted Luther Burden, who's now projected to start. Olamide Zaccheaus beat him out. I do think he has like a really high ceiling, though, Luther Burden this season. I think the Bears offense takes a pretty big leap forward here right away. In Minnesota, this game's actually in Chicago, and they're 1.5 point underdogs. I am taking Chicago to win this one. I am starting Caleb Williams right out of the gates. DeAndre Swift projects pretty well as like really the only running back on this team. Kyle Monangai, the 7th round pick, is projected to be RB2. Roshan Johnson's questionable with a foot injury. He hasn't practiced in a while, though. I don't think he's going to end up playing. DJ Moore's a must start. And I think Rome Odunze is really like must start territory here as well. The Vikings were really bad versus receivers last season. I think they were actually dead last. Yeah, dead last versus receivers and points per game allowed last season. And I won't be surprised at all when DJ Moore leads this entire team in fantasy points. Wouldn't be shocking to see him be wide receiver 1. For all of the offensive environment stuff I just talked about with Caleb Williams and this whole offense, like Odunze might actually benefit the most. And I think he's a very sneaky candidate to get the slot role over DJ Moore. I think they'll all play somewhat in the slot over Luther Burden, over Olamide Zaccheaus. Odunze might mix in the slot a lot more than he did last season, where he really didn't play a ton. And the slot role is where we've seen Ben Johnson have so much success. So underdog at home versus the Vikings, really good start here in year 2. Starting situation here in year 2 for Rome Odunze. On the Viking side of the ball, I do think J.J. McCarthy is an upgrade over Sam Darnold. I'm pretty excited about the impacts of that here. One of the best offensive environment situations over the past few years has been the Vikings. They made Sam Darnold look like an MVP candidate for like 2/3 of the season. Justin Jefferson has the all-time most receiving yards per game in NFL history, over 100 yards per game for Jay Jettas. Obviously an absolute lock here, no matter the matchup, no matter the situation, no matter the quarterback. But there's no wide receiver 2 in this spot with the suspension to Jordan Addison. Adam Thielen projects as the wide receiver 2, but he just joined this team like a week ago. We'll see what the role really is for him. Jalen Naylor might actually end up playing ahead of him. I'm really curious to see the running back split, but TJ Hawkinson is definitely a safer bet, I think, than usual. With the Addison suspension, with Adam Thielen just joining the team, I would start Njoku over him. I would start Tyler Warren, I think, over Hawkinson. That one's pretty close. But then it's Hawk. I'm starting Hawk over Laporta. I'm starting him over Kraft and Strange and that tier of tight ends as well. Pull up the tight end ranks here. We are about to get to all the comments, by the way. appreciate everyone's patience as I go game by game, give my thoughts on each player in each game. But yeah, I'm taking the Bears in this spot. And again, I'm not underrating the offensive environment shift here for the Bears. And I'm pretty scared for Aaron Jones in fantasy this year too. I think he'll have the receiving work in this backfield, but I think very clearly the Vikings went out and got Jordan Mason to be their goal line back. Aaron Jones was horrible at the goal line last year. He had negative yards on his goal line carries last season, like really didn't convert almost a single one of them. I think Jordan Mason is going to immediately have that role, and it is going to lower the ceiling for Aaron Jones. But both these guys definitely can be started here in week one with no Jordan Addison, with JJ McCarthy, basically a rookie. He's not truly a rookie, but he obviously played no games last year. He was hurt the whole season. This team really could skew a lot more run heavy. It's going to be Justin Jefferson going over 100 yards, TJ Hawkinson having a role, but this team could be one of the more run heavy teams really out of the gates with a somewhat rookie quarterback and two pretty good running backs. They've always been really effective running the ball as well. That is every game in week one. What a slate of games, man, we have today, this game tomorrow as well. It's going to be a fantastic, fantastic Sunday. I hope you guys are all as excited as I am. Let me switch over to the wide receiver ranks here as I go through the free player props, the Draftkings lineup, and then we get to the start sit segment of the live stream. We are about 2 hours in right now. All right. The free player props. I got a bunch for us today. And I put a lot of time, guys, into these free player props. I'm taking these myself. I take almost all the advice I give. I'm not someone who's just out here spewing advice and not following it myself. I have real skin in the game here. And all my fantasy takes, and definitely with the player props too. Last year, over 75 picks were given out on this live stream. We went 62% hit rate. And like a lot of these were plus odds too. There were a range of odds here. But I'm not just giving like all minus, 160 type stuff. All right. I got 4 for us today. I already talked through most of them. Brenton Strange probably isn't a surprising one if you've been here since the beginning of this live. Shout out to you if you have, by the way. But Brenton Strange over 28.5 receiving yards. We have seen Brenton Strange smash this line when he is getting like any type of volume. He averaged 50 yards per game, Brenton Strange, last year in his 6 games with at least 3 receptions. We're projecting him for over 3 receptions in this game. If you are with me that Brenton Strange is getting at least 3 catches in this game, I mean, this prop is an absolute smash. And I'd be really surprised if he doesn't get at least three catches in this game. We're projecting him, again, 3.4. The Panthers also allowed 50. He's playing the Panthers today. They allowed 54 receiving yards per game to tight ends last year's season. So in the sample size we have of Strange, in the role that we expect him to have today, he averaged 50 yards per game. And he's up against a defense that allowed 54 yards per game to tight ends, and they're setting his line at 28.5. So yeah, love this Brenton Strange line. Like Brenton Strange as a really good sleeper pick in fantasy right now as well, as I've talked about extensively, and I'll move on. Nico Collins, 5.5 receptions. Just one of the easiest volume projections here in week one is Nico Collins. Christian Kirk is out. Even with Christian Kirk in, like this should have been the line for Nico. This line really should be at 6.5. We've seen him command massive target shares in last season with both Steph Diggs and Tank Dell playing. Obviously, neither of those guys will be out there for the Texans today. Steph Diggs on the Patriots, Tank Dell out for probably the whole season. If you filter to games, and I know he missed a portion of last season, but if you filter to games where he's playing over 80% of the snaps and seeing at least 5-6 targets, Nico is hitting this line at around 60 to 70% of the time. Really like the projectable volume here for Nico. In this game too, I think the Texans can win, but they are underdogs. And I am not convinced this team will be able to run the ball at all. Like they just really might be forced into a ton of pass volume. Aroma Dunze, just talked about him in that last game, but I really like this line for him too. 3.5 receptions. If he gets moved into the slot, this line's probably at least 2 receptions too low. And even if he doesn't get moved into the slot, this team's underdogs at home against the Vikings, who allowed the most catches per game to receivers last season. No defense funneled targets and receptions to the receiver position like the Vikings defense did last year, because they're really good against the run and just not that strong against the secondary, against the receivers in the secondary. I do think this Vikings defense is a good one. But again, I think the Bears' offensive environment shift neutralizes that. I like this Adunze over 3.5 receptions. And then the last one, this honestly feels a little like cheating. This one. Ja'Cory Cross-Garrett to be involved in week 1. We're seeing a report of that. I do not expect more than 5 carries for Cross-Garrett in this game. We talked about this earlier, and he's capable of breaking off a big run. Don't get me wrong. Like, he could beat this line with 5 carries. To me, that's like close to the ceiling, though, for Ja'Cory Cross-Garrett. The only scary part about this prop is if this game gets out of hand, which it could. They're playing the Giants. They're 6.5 point favorites at home. Definitely could get out of hand. But we talked about it when I talked about this game earlier. There's just no path to significant volume for Ja'Cory Cross-Garrett. Austin Eckler is going to lead this backfield in snaps. Chris Rodriguez is the short yardage goal line back. Jaden Daniels is going to take carries. Deebo Samuel is going to take carries. And Jerry McNichols is rumored to be involved in the pass game as well. If there's a total yards line out there for JCM, I'm actually like that under more because I do not expect him to have really any receiving role. But I'm going with the Ja'Cory Cross-Garrett under 33.5 rushing yards. It's the final free player prop of the day. Hopefully we can start strong here with 4 for 4 and beat our 62% rate from last season. All right, on to the DraftKings lineup, and then we will get to all the comments. All right, I'm going with Jaden Daniels, unstacked Jaden Daniels here in this DraftKings lineup. I usually go with a stack, but I think Jaden Daniels is kind of similar to Josh Allen, is in one of those situations where you don't need to stack him, and he could still absolutely break the slate. And you could actually beat a lot of the teams that ended up stacking with him if he spreads the ball around enough and does enough of it with his legs, which he's obviously capable of doing. And because of the like crazy misprices, the amount of mispriced players on this slate, I think it is one of the rare situations where I'm willing to pay up for one of the elite QBs, who I think could be the quarterback one this whole season in Jaden Daniels. Like, the guy that could actually beat Lamar and Josh Allen this year is Jaden Daniels, built in a lab for fantasy football. I'm going with 2 rookie running backs here as I continue to just bet on this rookie running back class. And that starts at the top of the class with Ashton Genty, who could lead the NFL in carries this season, and Trevion Henderson, who doesn't need a lot of volume to break fantasy football DFS slates. I'm in on the target share for Trevion Henderson right out of the gates here as the best offensive player the Patriots have. I'm going with Drake London and Jamar Chase, the wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 in the Walter Picks app projections. Especially if Darnell Mooney doesn't play. I mean, London's definitely mispriced. I'm going with Ricky Pearsall, who projects as a top 15 wide receiver option, and Emeka Egbuka, who projects as a top 15 wide receiver option. Obviously going with Brenton Strange here in the tight end slot, paying down at tight end. If you don't pay down, I think I would go with Kittle here. And I'm going with the Cardinals defense against Spencer Rattler. That's the DK lineup today. I will be playing this one myself in some tournaments. This is a tournament lineup, which I usually, again, really rare I don't stack in these tournament lineups, but I think kind of a contrarian play here for me in week 1. Just as a quick reminder for those of you that joined a little bit later, Weatherman Sam's here all season for you guys with the weather reports in the fantasy football context. I'm not overly concerned about any of the weather today, but there's a decent amount of rain, and the most rain in this Patriots-Raiders game, which I think makes me like those running back picks even more in my DK lineup. I'm not overly concerned, though. It's going to be worse at its worst before the game, so I think some people might overreact to what they see before the game in this Patriots-Raiders game. If you're watching live on TikTok, by the way, guys, come to the YouTube Live. Way better viewing experience. Link is right in the TikTok bio. I'm sharing screen to the stuff I'm talking about more easily on the YouTube Live. I will answer comments from both, though. There's also going to be some light scattered rain in the Jets Steelers game, the Panthers Jags game, the Titans Broncos game, and the 49ers Seahawks game. I am not concerned, though, again, really about any of these games weather-wise. The thing that is most concerning in the NFL when it comes to weather is a wind over 25 miles an hour. We're not going to have any of that today. None. If you haven't yet, you got to check out the Walter Picks app and try the free trial. If you use code SAM, you get a free trial on the Walter Picks app right now for a limited time. Best way you could possibly support me and the entire Walter Picks brand. All right, let's get to the portion of the live you've all been waiting for, the comment section portion. Football is so back. Could not be more back. All right, let's get to shift over here. We got the comments up on screen on the YouTube Live. I will answer comments from both lives throughout the rest of the live stream. I'm going to get to hundreds of start sits, maybe thousands of start sits. I want to, we'll see if I'm able to do it, but I want to try to count the amount of start sit questions I answer this year and keep track of my hit rate on the start sits as well, since I answer a ridiculous amount of start sit questions every single Sunday morning, and we got multiple hours to go before kickoff. All right. Before I dive in, I want to remind everyone in week one, there's going to be some cases where we break this, but generally speaking, in week one, it's the easiest start sit. It's the easiest start sit week of the year. Start the guys you drafted the earliest. Why did you draft them earlier if you weren't going to start them in week one? This is almost always, right? Not always, but almost always the way to go. Again, there's some rookies in better situations than maybe expected, some better matchups and such, and we'll talk through all that. Okay. I think the way I did this last year that was most efficient is going position by position so I can get in a flow within a position. So we're actually going to start. So I pulled up the wrong one here. We're going to start with tight end because I think the tight end start sits are really straightforward. If you have a tight end start sit question, smash it in the chat now. James, the 4 picks of the day was Brenton Strange over yards, Rome Odunze and Nico Collins over receptions, and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt under yards. Those were the 4 free player props of the day. I had 4 for you here in week one. We were 62% on those last year. Smash the subscribe button and the like button if you're watching live on YouTube. Smash the follow button if you're watching live on TikTok. Back for another year here, Jonah, in the YouTube chat. Kyle Pitts or Brenton Strange? Yeah, so I think Pitts is like not the worst option here in week one, and I won't be surprised the more I've thought about it if this actually is the year for Kyle Pitts. But yeah, I'm going Strange, man. I'm going Brenton Strange. I'm playing Strange over Evan Ingram. I'm playing him over Kyle Pitts. I'm playing over Dalton Kincaid. I'm playing Strange over all of those guys. I'm playing Strange over Colston Loveland. I'm personally playing Strange over Cade Otton as well. Let me pull up the tight end ranks here again on the YouTube live. I'm playing Strange over Cade Otton. I'm playing Kraft over Strange. I'm playing Sam Laporta over Strange. I'm playing Hawkinson over Strange. Tyler Warren and Joe, all the other obvious guys over Strange. Evan Ingram or Tyler Warren. I'm going Tyler Warren there. I'm pretty out on Evan Ingram. Jonnu is a sleeper. Yeah, I'm not convinced about which Steelers tight end is actually going to lead that team. I'm going Strange over Loveland. Yeah, pretty easily. Sorry, let me filter the tight ends here on the YouTube live. Otton or Kincaid. Yeah, I'm going Otton over Kincaid. I think Otton's actually like pretty sneaky. Not a tight end question here. App says Juwan. Yeah, I would go Juwan and Hunter, I think, here. I'm definitely starting Hunter. Kittle or Warren. Yeah, so you absolutely cannot bench Kittle. You cannot bench Kittle. He literally projects his tight end 1. You cannot bench Bowers, McBride. No one's going to bench them. I don't know how you could possibly bench Kittle. And you probably wasted a pick on Warren because you're never going to bench Kittle. Loveland or Ertz. Yeah, so Colston Loveland is definitely one of the rookies for me that I have circled as like, I would prefer not to start him in week one. And I'm pretty high in the Bears offense. I'm pretty high on Colston Loveland. But when it comes to rookie tight ends, like generally not starting them in week one is a safe move, especially if you have someone somewhat reliable. And Zach Ertz was like a lot better than people remember last season. All off season, all draft season. I was looking at our projections. I'm like, how is Zach Ertz ranked this high? And then you go back and look at the numbers, and how is he not? He was tied in 11 in points per game last year, top 10, top 12 in like basically every single metric that matters. I still think Ben Sinnott might actually be pretty good, but yeah, Ertz was like pretty consistent last year. And this is like a pretty good guy, like a really good guy, honestly, to pair with Loveland. Should give you some early season floor, and then hopefully Loveland gives you that late season ceiling. Any other tight end start sits here? Warren or Hawk? Yeah, I'm going Hawk there. Oh man, Hawk versus Warren's actually close. We actually have Warren projected ahead of Hawk. I feel like with Addison out, I do like Tyler Warren a lot. Really good matchup for him too versus the Dolphins. This is actually a really good one to maybe end on here. Loveland or Otton, I'll get to that one next. We're going to go to the quarterbacks next, then we'll do receivers and running backs after that. Wow, safer floor, but higher ceiling for safer floor for Warren, higher ceiling for Hawk in the Walter Pixat projections here. I think I'd lean Hawk. Warren projects just barely better. I think you can apply something similar to what I was just saying with Luffham though here. Go with the slightly safer option. I know the bust probability is a little bit safer here for Warren in the app. I think just not starting the rookie tight end when you have another really good option is fair. The line is probably Hawkinson. I think I would go Warren over Laporta. I'd play him over Kraft and Strange. But yeah, if I have Hawkinson and Njoku, Andrews, McBride, Bowers, Kittle, I'm playing them over Warren, even though he projects a little bit better. Yeah, so Kyler Murray came down with an illness. Let's go to the quarterbacks now. There was an Otten question there before that I just missed. That's my bad. Let me just talk through Cade Otten. I do think he actually is a decent tight end option. I would personally start Kraft and Brenton Strange over Cade Otten. But then it's Otten, and I think it was Otten versus Ingram. I'd play Cade Otten over Evan Ingram. I'd play Cade Otten over Kyle Pitts here in week 1. Really good game environment for Cade Otten. Should play almost every single snap. No Chris Godwin, obviously. All right, let's get to the quarterbacks now. If you got quarterback start sit questions, send them in the chat now. We're going to be hammering quarterback start sit questions for the next many minutes. And yeah, there was a report this morning that has me a bit sketched out about my survivor pool pick that I might change right after this live to the Broncos in favor of the Arizona Cardinals. Let me just pull up the report here. Find this report. He was added to the injury report with an illness, but will play. He's fine. We can't overreact to an illness. Already said they'll play. Yeah, I'm not pivoting off them either in the survivor pool. I mean, the survivor pool pick 2 is all about Spencer Rattler in the Saints QB situation. Anyways, I don't think we move Kyler really at all based on this news. Yeah, I'd go Kyler over Daniel Jones. Kyler versus Drake May is super close. We had them 0.1 points projected between them, between these quarterbacks. Kyler versus May versus Caleb Williams, extremely tight one. Caleb Williams projects the best. I think I agree with how we have this projected. I probably would play them in this order. Caleb, then Kyler, then May. I'm playing all of these guys over Fields. I'm actually pretty nervous for Fields here in week 1. Like, this feels like a bad revenge game situation for him, where he's playing a defense that really knows how to stop him well. They're like very familiar, obviously, with Justin Fields. And I feel he's the type of quarterback that if you really can know how to stop him, he could be in a really tough spot because he really isn't a good passer. That game's also going to have some rain, and the Steelers defense is generally good. So yeah, I'm a little nervous for Fields for sure. I'm starting Bo Nix over Trevor Lawrence, but it's super close. And I think Bo Nix, I'm going to tell a lot of people to bench today. I would start Stroud over Bo Nix. I start Jordan Love over Bo Nix. I start Baker Mayfield, Drake May, Kyler Murray, Caleb Williams, Brock Purdy. I'd start them all over Bo Nix. And I'm not really benching Brock Purdy today either. He projects really well. Kyler, Drake May, rest of season. I probably lean towards Drake May, but the projections probably have Kyler. I really think Drake May takes the year 2 lead today and this season. Caleb Williams or Baker Mayfield, I could stack them. I have Ibuka and DJ Moore. Yeah, personally, I'm going Caleb. Happy Football Sunday to you as well. Joey, year 4, man. True OG. Appreciate you so much. I have Fields, unfortunately, in Superflex, still starting full PPR. Yeah, in Superflex, you got to start Fields. I got a tough Superflex start sit myself with Fields between him and Bryce Young. And I think I'm going to go with Fields. Like, I think the floor for Fields is a little bit higher just because of the rushing. Yeah, it's exactly how we have it here in the app too. Like a higher floor for Fields, but a higher ceiling for Young. And like, what's the real ceiling for Fields if he can't throw? Like, he just lacks the passing ceiling that you want. I'm going Caleb over Lawrence. I do like Trevor Lawrence today too. Definitely that Travis Hunter report is good for him, even though it wasn't surprising to us. Stafford or Love, it's easily Love over Stafford. Love is a top 10 QB for us right now in the projections. Connor or Sutton? Yeah, I think I'd probably go James Conner over Sutton. But I would play Love over all of them, though, in a Superflex league. You want to start 2 QBs in Superflex. Even if it's a slightly sketchy QB with Fields or Bryce Young, you're starting them. Why so low on Bo Nix? They're 8.5-point favorites. Again, it's projected to have some rain. I just think it could be a really run-heavy game script for the Broncos. And the Titans' defense wasn't bad last year either. Like, could be a lower scoring, run-heavy game script for the Broncos potentially today. Tet, Egbuka, and Pearsall. We're not quite at the receiver portion yet, but the receiver one's going to be fun. I think the receiver starts are probably going to be the toughest ones. And you're not benching Egbuka. Like, you have to start him. You probably have to bench Tet here. For Egbuka and Pearsall, I think Pearsall and Tet is close. I'm playing Jordan Love over Justin Fields. I'm playing most guys over Fields. I mean, Joe Flacco projects for more points than Fields in our projections right now, which doesn't feel great. We talked about that Steelers Jets game a lot, but it's like the ugliest game projection of the week. They have by far the lowest over-under. There's going to be rain in the game. The Steelers are very familiar with Justin Fields. It's a double revenge game too. But yeah, I'm benching Fields if I have Jared Goff. I'd probably play over Fields in that game environment. Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence projects better than him. I'm playing Bo Nix, Stroud, Love, Mayfield, May, all these guys over Fields. DK, Downs, or Waddle, pick 2, please. Russell Wilson or Daniel Jones in the Superflex. I think I would go Danny Dimes over Russ. Really good matchup here for Daniel Jones in week 1. I think you kind of have to go Waddle and DK here over Downs. My gut says Downs, but I like the projections are definitely going to say DK and Waddle here. Shrag, great to see you in the chat. JSN, Tet, and Sutton, pick 2. Yeah, I'm benching Sutton here for sure. All right, I think we got to move on to the receivers. I'm seeing a lot of receiver questions. We'll get to the running backs last. Honestly, I feel like the running backs are also like somewhat straightforward. Again, I like Dobbins and Harvey, who I expect to see a lot of start-sit questions of today, but they're in a really good game environment for sure. I think we're going to see a lot of these rookie receivers being asked about today, and they're all pretty strong. I got Tet and DJ Moore and Jawan Jennings, Jalen Waddle, Travis Hunter, Jameson Williams, all in the same tier, in tier 4, all top 24 wide receivers this week. But among all the rookie receivers, you can't bench Emeka Egbuka. Yeah, so I'm starting JSN and Ted over Sutton. Again, I think the Broncos, they really could be like in a really run-heavy game script today. They're 8.5-point favorites. And Emeka Egbuka versus Devontae Adams, though. Oh man, yeah, wow, they're back-to-back here in the projections. This one's close. I think you kind of have to go Adams in this spot. The only guys that I'm starting over Emeka Egbuka today: Drake London, Jamar Chase, Nico, Jefferson, Amon-Ra, Neighbors, Puka, Brian Thomas, Mike Evans, T. Higgins, Devontae Adams. Honestly, Tyreek Hill, I don't know if I would start him over Egbuka. He projects better. I don't know if I would do that. So that's really, there was only 11 guys. Egbuka's at number 12. So yeah, Adams, I'm starting over him. T. Higgins, I'm starting over him. Mike Evans, I'm starting over him. Pull up the wide receiver ranks here again on the YouTube Live. Shout out to everybody in this live stream right now. By the way, it is the best day of the week, man. Sunday football is back, and what a time to be alive, man. What a time. Smash the subscribe button if you're watching live on YouTube. Hit the like button. Helps me out a ton. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button. If you haven't checked out the Walter Picks app yet, I do not know what you're waiting for. You are actively not trying to win fantasy or props. There's literally a 7-day trial right now to all the premium features in the app, completely free for 7 days to try to start the season off well. The subscription is way underpriced, in my opinion, for what you get. If you're in a serious fantasy league or you're actually doing a reasonable amount of props, free version has a lot of value, obviously, as well. If you're not in a serious fantasy league or you're not that serious about props. Yeah, it's Adams. It's Adams over Egbuka, man. But God, I do not want to bench Egbuka at all. Like, not at all. Sutton or Terry. That one's pretty close too. We got Terry just behind Sutton. Both these guys could be in really negative game scripts today too. Yeah, I'd go Sutton over Terry though. Definitely close. Ridley, Downs, or Hunter in a PPR. Yeah, this one is like an absolute smash of Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter, I was talking about it when I already talked about, we've been live for multiple hours. I've talked about every single game and basically every single player at this point. And now we're on the start sit segment. I'm going to get to hundreds of more wide receiver start sits here in a second. I got the wide receiver ranks up on the YouTube live, up on the TikTok live too, and my tiers as well on the TikTok live. But like Travis Hunter, I think the question we're going to be asking like sooner than a lot of people might expect is, who's the number one receiver on the Jaguars? Is it Brian Thomas Jr. or Travis Hunter? Like this might end up being the best receiver, one of the best receiver duos in the league, right up there with the Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, right up there with the CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. I know Pickens disappointed in his first game. I'm still pretty bullish on him personally, but yeah, this could really be up there. Like Travis Hunter, I think is closer. Like the ceiling for Travis Hunter is, we're having a conversation about, is he better than Brian Thomas Jr.? That's the ceiling. And it's not surprising. This report that he's playing every offensive snap is not surprising. And the report that might not be the case, that was honestly more surprising to me. That there was a report that like, oh, this is just a week one thing, might not be a consistent thing. And again, like if you just step back and you think about the bigger impact Travis Hunter can make for the Jaguars, it's on offense, on the side of the ball where you can actually have a say and an influence on who is involved in getting the ball. If Travis Hunter is the best defensive player that the Jaguars have, the opposing team can just not throw it at Travis Hunter. Just completely neutralize the player that you traded multiple first-round picks to go up and draft. Meanwhile, where you're going to be losing against the Panthers, and you're going to have Travis Hunter, standing on the sidelines as De'Ami Brown and Tim Patrick and Parker Washington run routes? Like, just absolutely not. There's just no world where that's going to happen, even with Brenton Strange dominating at the tight end position. So yeah. I mean, Travis Hunter is going to play a ton on offense this year. He is extremely, extremely talented receiver, and I think he's going to be able to play both ways just fine, too, to some extent. So yeah, I'm starting Hunter over Ridley for sure. Ridley's up against Pat Surtain and the Broncos, really rough. And I like Downs in PPR leagues as well, but he does not have the same ceiling as Travis Hunter. Already need help here in week one. Nico, how we doing? Good to see you back. We couldn't be more back, man. Could not be more back. We are going to answer tons more start sits here still on this live. Ekbuka versus JMO. Yeah, it's Ekbuka. DJ Moore, Marvin, and Pearsall. Yeah, this one's a pretty close one. DJ Moore. Pearsall projects the best here. Yeah, Marvin, DJ Moore right next to each other. It's Pearsall, man. And honestly, of all weeks, like I feel like this is pretty clearly the week to be most confident in Ricky Pearsall, because Juwan Jennings has barely practiced and Christian McCaffrey's like questionable as well. It seems like they're both gonna play, but yeah, I think Pearsall is set up to be in a really, really safe role today. I think I go Pearsall here. Definitely a close one though. Welcome back, Sam. Welcome back to all of you as well. Duke, how we doing? Myers, Ridley, Golden, Higgins. Pick one. If this is Jaden Higgins, you're definitely not starting Jaden Higgins here. You're probably going Jacoby Myers in the Patriots revenge game. I'd probably rank these guys, assuming this is Jaden Higgins, just based on the question. I'm assuming it's Jaden Higgins because T. Higgins would be an obvious start. It's Myers, then Golden, then Ridley, then Higgins. I think that's how my ranks have it here as well. Back for the fourth year in this chat. Adam, I led off the stream talking about this. This is year 5 for me. Talking through every single game, every single player, and hundreds of start sits every single Sunday morning, man. So grateful I get to be back for another year doing this. Grateful for all of you listening. Grateful to call this part of my job. And grateful for you, Adam, for being back for 4 straight years, man. Truly, truly crazy stuff. Pick 2, happy PR. Pearsall, DJ Moore, Tet, Brees. Yeah, so scoring settings matter a ton. And I appreciate you tossing in the happy PR. Clearly, you're an OG, Adam, because I got to know the scoring settings. And especially if it's not PPR, because I'll just assume it's PPR. If you don't tell me, I'm assuming it's PPR. A point per reception league, because all my leagues are PPR. In my opinion, it's the best scoring mode, in my favorite scoring mode. It's just what I'm used to. And happy PPR makes a huge difference. And non-PPR is an even bigger difference. But generally speaking, as you go down the amount of points you're getting for receptions, You got to move up the running backs in the ranks. Like Breece Hall gets a huge boost here in this question because it's half PPR rather than PPR, even though he catches a lot of passes. But yeah, like I'll just generally tiebreaker goes to the running backs when you go down the scoring settings like this. But yeah, I think I would probably go Pearsall and Breece here. I'd probably go Pearsall and Breece over Tet and DJ Moore. Let's do a half PPR projection here though, because I actually think Tet and DJ Moore might have actually a higher touchdown ceiling than Pearsall, so they might actually be a bit better at half PPR too. But yeah, I definitely would start Breece. Do I want to say definitely though with that game projection? Let's actually see. We'll do Tet and Pearsall here in a half PPR league. Wow, yeah, it's super close. But yeah, I think I stick with what I said. I'd go Pearsall and Breece. Yeah, all these guys project super tight. Makes a lot of sense. Definitely a tough start sit there. Let's go, Sam. Jeff, let's go, man. It is the best day of the week. The best day of the week is back. Football Sundays are back, man. All right, let's go Pearsall, Garrett Wilson, or Teddy Mack. Wow, Teddy Mack. I like that. A lot of people calling him Tet. Teddy Mack is a good name, man. That's a good nickname there. I might steal that. And we were just talking about Pearsall versus Teddy Mack. In another question, I think I stick with Pearsall here, even with this Teddy Mack nickname. I think I go Pearsall just projection wise. And yeah, I think I play both these guys over Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, like a lot of people were very concerned, getting more and more concerned about Garrett Wilson. I talked about that when I talked about the Jets game too. That I think both Garrett Wilson and Breece, they're both just being a little bit underrated heading into the season just for the talent profiles that they have. Like these are two, I think, just like locked in stud players, just extremely efficient, highly talented players on a team with no other known highly talented players. Like the depth chart is an absolute joke, really, after Garrett Wilson. And you can extend it to Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis if you want to at the running back spot. But man, Josh Reynolds is wide receiver 2. They got Mason Taylor, a rookie tight end, as their tight end 1. I mean, there's just no playmakers outside of Garrett Wilson, Breece, and Fields really on this team. But week 1 in the rain against the Steelers in the lowest projected over-under of the week, I'm going Pearsall and Tet, over Garrett Wilson. And I'm going Pearsall over Tet here as well. Teddy Mack. I think I'm taking that. Yeah, I was just talking about this one, Egbuka versus Tyreek Hill. This is a great question. Really, really fun one here. And I literally was just talking about this unprompted here a second ago as I was looking at the ranks. We got Tyreek projected ahead of Egbuka right now in the Walter Picks app. I had him ahead in my ranks on the live stream as well. So this is half PPR. Let me switch back to full PPR. It's even closer, I think, in full PPR. And half PPR, I actually think giving Tyreek the nod might make sense. But yeah, in general, in PPR leagues, I'm going to Egbuka over Tyreek. I think there's a real chance that Waddle is the wide receiver 1 for the Dolphins this year, not Tyreek. Tyreek Hill, we talked about with Cooper Kupp a little bit. I actually didn't mention it with Tyreek, who was on my do not draft list this year. Probably the scariest player I put on my do not draft list was Tyreek Hill. And if you were here earlier in the live, because I've been up for a while, I'm on Spain time today. I'm 6 hours ahead. So I've been up for quite some time. But if you've been up for quite some time as well, and you were here at the very beginning of the live, as I talked about this game, I don't think there's a player with a wider range of outcomes this NFL season than Tyreek Hill. Like, I think it's the widest range of outcomes of any player. He could literally be a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy. He was literally the wide receiver 1 2 seasons ago with 23.7 points. But we talked about with Cooper Kupp, it's really, really uncommon to see 30-plus-year-old wide receivers coming off their worst statistical season ever to bounce back. Like, really uncommon. Is Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill the types of guys that could potentially do it? Sure. But like historically speaking, coming off your worst statistical season at age 31 and a half is not the type of guy you want to bet on top of all the off-the-field issues. Him saying he wants to leave the team at the end of last season, not being a captain this season, barely practicing. He barely practiced this entire preseason with an oblique injury. He is going to play today. He's not on the injury report today, but yeah, I'm going to Egbuka, who I just like is absolutely locked in to a high floor PPR role. He's playing the primary slot role on a team who's the last player to play that primary slot role last season was the wide receiver 2 overall in fantasy points per game. Chris Godwin was the wide receiver 2 only behind Jamar Chase in points per game last season, playing that slot role. And Egbuka is as pro ready as it gets when it comes to rookie receivers. So yeah, I'm going to Egbuka in a really good game environment too. So yeah, I feel pretty good about that. Jordan, how we doing? in the chat here. Pick one wide receiver, one flex standard: Olave, Odunze, Henderson, Eckler. I could also drop Bill for Myers. Yeah, I would do that. I would drop Bill, Kraske, Merritt for Jacoby Myers. But yeah, I'm probably going a standard league too. Yeah, so definitely starting Trevion Henderson here, and then I'd probably go Odunze. I think I'd go Odunze over a lot, and then pull up the wide receiver ranks here again. Yeah, I got it really close. Let's actually do this quick. Myers might actually project better than both too. Because in non-PPR, and this is part of the reason the Walter Picks app's like an absolute cheat code, by the way. And most of what you're seeing too, if you're watching live on YouTube, most of what you're seeing on my screen that I'm doing during the live to help myself answer your questions is free. Like a lot of this stuff is free. But part of the reason it's such a cheat code is it does account for your settings. And again, the settings, like I was just explaining, can really change things a lot. Myers, Olave, and Odunze. So the thing about non-PPR scoring settings is it really overweights touchdowns. Like touchdowns are just such a high percentage of the fantasy point total. And so you want to start the guys that have the better chance of the touchdown, not the guys who have Spencer Rattler at quarterback. It's not going to be that guy. So yeah, Olave is dead last year. I would go with Dunze. That was what my gut said as well. Projections agree. Don't need to overthink it. Kylo, good morning to you. Good morning to everyone. It is not morning where I am. It's 5 p.m. here in Spain time, here for a wedding for the past week. Shout out Ray. Shout out Jared. But of course, we're not missing a Sunday morning live and ending the 5-year streak that we got going here. Ridley Swift or Tracy in a PPR flex. Yeah, so Ridley really is a bench if you can bench him this week. It's probably the worst possible week 1 matchup, which the secondary that we know is elite. Pat Surtain, the defensive player of the year last year, was just a nightmare for fantasy football receivers last season. The target volume should still be there, I think, for Ridley, and I have some hope they'll be able to move him around the formation enough to get him away from Surtain. But yeah, it's Swift. DeAndre Swift is like, I think, one of the more underappreciated fantasy running backs. We have not seen him finish outside the top 24 running backs ever in his career. He's been a top 24 PPR running back in points per game for 5 straight seasons, back-to-back seasons. For DeAndre Swift, finishing top 24 in PPR points per game. He's never really been a league winner. He's not winning leagues. He's not finishing as a top 5 running back. But now he has Ben Johnson, whose offenses have ranked top 5 in points for 3 straight seasons. And his primary competition at running back is a 7th round rookie running back who does not catch passes in Kyle Monangai. Rashawn Johnson might not even be active. He's dealing with a foot injury. So yeah, Swift has a really, really safe floor, even in a somewhat difficult matchup here versus the Vikings. Flowers or Pollard. Can't bench Pollard, guys. Can't bench Pollard. Running back ranks. Yeah, I got you with the running back ranks. Pull up the running back ranks as we continue to hammer the start sit questions here. I got the running back ranks already up on the YouTube live. I'll switch to the receiver here. Appreciate the follows. Evan, thanks for the follow on TikTok Live. Appreciate the people hitting the subscribe button on YouTube too. It takes 2 seconds, helps them out a ton. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If I don't get to your start sit too, I've literally spent the last 5 years of my life helping build the Walter Picks app, which will answer your start sits. It will help answer your start sits. It's literally the tool I'm using to help answer your start sits on the live as well. The app customizes all projections to your specific league settings. We have a team of NFL experts and machine learning models that we've been building over the last 5 years with our team of data scientists that deliver the best possible fantasy projections you could possibly find and unmatched player prop insights as well. There's a 7-day free trial for all the premium features in the app right now too. I mean, there's just no excuse to not try the Walter Picks app. Use code SAMG, you get that 7-day free trial. James Conner or Kyren Williams is an interesting running back one. We can go to some of the running back start sits too. I don't think I've got too many running back start sits yet. We can kind of open it up to all positions at this point of the live. And yeah, it's Conner over Kyren Williams. Yeah, definitely a higher ceiling here, matchup wise against the Saints. They're my survivor pool pick. There's been some chatter. Trey Benson will be more involved. We'll see about that. But even if Trey Benson's more involved, Conner's got a really high odds at a touchdown today. Really good matchup here versus the Saints. Yeah, just a massive floor and ceiling. Kyron Williams is just a pure floor play too, like every week. Why he was on my do not draft list this year. Because he doesn't break big plays and he doesn't catch passes. James Conner can do both those things. Diggs or Pearsall PPR? Yeah, first Pearsall question. First Diggs question I've seen. A lot of Pearsall questions. I've told a lot of people already to start Pearsall. And I think it's Pearsall in this one too. It is a little bit unknown what the role will really be, what the role will really be for Diggs coming off the ACL. He's been practicing fully for months now, but he didn't play in the preseason. And like, it's still possible they ease him in like a little bit more than we want in fantasy coming off the torn ACL at 30 years old or 29 years old. I think 30. Yeah, 31. Egbuka over JSN. Yeah, that's a tough one, honestly. I do want to start JSN. I was just talking when I talked about the Seahawks game. Like JSN, I think we're going to look back and be like, JSN should have been a first round pick. He might be a first round pick next year. Like he's in that tier, with Brian Thomas Jr. and Puka Nacua and Neighbors and Amon Ra. Like he could be in that tier, I think, this season. But yeah, Egbuka is just an absolute smash. An amazing environment. That Seahawks game will have some rain in it. I'm not overly concerned about that. The Falcons game's in a dome. Egbuka's playing in the slot role that produced the wide receiver 2 in points per game last season. And he's just a stud rookie in just an incredible spot with the Godwin injury and with the Jalen McMillan injury as well. I think the Falcons win this game too. Like I really think that the Bucs offense actually might be pushed in this one too, pass volume wise. So yeah, we're not benching Egbuka in basically any spot today. Interesting question there between Waddle and Pollard. Pull up my must bench and must start guys here on the TikTok live. I like Waddle a lot. I mean, he's definitely was one of my most drafted players in all of the ridiculous amount of best ball drafts I did this year. I don't know how we bench Pollard here in week 1. Like another one of these guys that if you drafted him, I mean, you're not going to get a better situation than what we're going to have in this first month with Tony Pollard. There's no Tajay Spears. Khalil Mullings, who's a rookie that some people were excited about. And for anyone who's been consuming my content this offseason, I got as bad of a case of rookie fever as it gets. I mean, extremely contagious case of rookie fever all offseason. But yeah, I mean, Khalil Mullings, not a guy that I was really on. But yeah, Tony Pollard is just like, his floor is 20 touches. His floor is 20 touches. The Broncos pass defense is really strong. And the Titans are also getting a big QB upgrade just in general. So yeah, I'm going for Tony Pollard here. I'm going Tony Pollard in all scoring formats over Waddle. I think I would play Tony Pollard over Juwan Jennings. I'd probably play him over Tet McMillan is close. DJ Moore is close. Marvin Harrison Jr. is close, honestly. Like the floor is just so high, I think, volume-wise. Good evening, Sam. Anthony, how we doing? Pick 3 full PPR. Metcalf, Tet, London, Thomas Jr. Okay, so this is really a pick 1. You're starting London. You're starting Brian Thomas Jr. Enjoy the wedding. Appreciate that. Yeah, you're starting London and BTJ. These are top 10 options. We have London right now projected as wide receiver 1. With Darnell Mooney right now projected out, which we don't have confirmed yet. So yeah, Metcalf versus Tet. We're calling him Teddy Mac, as one of the commenters nicknamed him earlier. And yeah, we're starting Teddy Mac over. We're starting Teddy Mac there. Yeah, for sure. I'm playing Teddy Mac over Cortland Sutton. I'm playing Tet McMillan. Teddy Mac McMillan. We're playing him over Juwan Jennings, over Jalen Waddle. Teddy Mac McMillan versus Travis Hunter. That's a really good one. Both top 24 wide receivers in projections right now. And yeah, I think Tet McMillan is safer there. I'm playing Purdy over Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, for sure. I think both guys are pretty intriguing. I think Trevor Lawrence is one of the really sneaky QB fantasy options right now. He's available for free in a bunch of leagues right now on the waiver wire. And we've really never seen it from Trevor Lawrence, but now he has like maybe the best wide receiver duo in the league or up there. Like they really might be up there with Chase and Higgins. It's at least feasible. And he gets the coaching upgrade. Good morning, Alvin. Appreciate you doing the Walter Picks subscription. Best way you could possibly support me, the best way you could possibly support your chances at winning your fantasy league and winning your player props is doing the Walter Picks subscription. It has a free trial right now, Alvin. Like, how are people going to pass on a free trial? I mean, it's honestly, it is negligent for your fantasy team and for your prop success to pass on that out. I think you would probably agree. Zay Flowers, DJ Moore, or Golden. Yeah, this one I think is really between Flowers and DJ Moore. I'd prefer to bench Golden if I can in spots like this, even though like he's really being thrust into like a pretty good role in a pretty good game environment. Matthew Golden, just not the type of college prospect that personally I feel super comfortable betting on here in week one. Never had 1,000 yards in college. Really was not that productive of a college receiver. So I think some people are leaping maybe a little bit too far to just assume he's going to be a productive receiver in the NFL, but he is the wide receiver one here in week one for the Packers. Part of the reason I'm really high on Tucker Kraft as well, with Jaden Reed dealing with an injury. But yeah, Flowers versus DJ Moore is close. Let's do that comparison quick here. If you're watching live on TikTok, by the way, we are live on YouTube and TikTok, and I answer hundreds of comments from both throughout the live stream. But the YouTube viewing experience, it is better. I can pull up comments on screen. I can share my screen to the Walter Picks app where I'm going to do this comparison right now. And you can come to the YouTube live very easily. Link is in the TikTok bio if you're watching live on TikTok. Running back, please. Yeah, I got you. Zay projects a bit better than DJ Moore here. Really, obviously, good game environment for Zay in this game versus the Bills. You do want pieces of this game. I'm okay going Zay Flowers, yeah, here. I like both these guys and both these passing attacks really this week too. The two primetime games. Good morning, Sam. Cole, it's not morning for me, man. I'm doing this live from Spain. I have live streamed from many places, but definitely not anywhere as different as I am live streaming from today in Spain for a wedding. Congrats to Ray and Jared. But obviously, we're not missing the best day of the week in Sunday mornings. Start two, Myers, Devontae, McMillian. I think that's Teddy Mack, McMillan, and Chuba Hubbard, 0.125 per yard. Yeah, I think this one's Hubbard and Devontae. You're starting Devontae and Chuba Hubbard here. Defense rankings. Yeah, I got you with the defense rankings. Haven't actually pulled those up. Honestly, it feels like kind of a tough defense week. Thanks, Andy, for doing the TikTok Live subscription. The TikTok Live subscribers at the end, I will do a subscriber-only comment mode on TikTok Live, and I'll get to every single TikTok Live subscriber comment if you're watching live on TikTok. Need help with my running back 2 and tight end. Do you prefer Ford or Harvey, and then Otten or Henry? Yeah, I'd go Otten over Henry. I do like Otten in that game environment. I like Brenton Strange more if Brenton Strange is available on the waivers, but otherwise, yeah, I'd go Otten here. And then, yeah, you're going Harvey. You're going Harvey over Ford. And like, I could see Ford doing well. Jesse, thanks for doing the TikTok Live subscription. I think Ford could have a good game in a really good environment against the Bengals. Like, they just have a dream setup for fantasy points because they're going to score so much, throw so much against any defense, even the Browns, who probably have a good defense again. But the Bengals defense is atrocious. And Jerome Ford's going to catch passes, going to be the primary pass catching back. And he might get more carries than people expect to, with Dylan Sampson being a rookie. But yeah, RJ Harvey is a way higher ceiling in an even better game environment, probably even than the Browns have against the Bengals. Yeah, the Titans defense is better than the Bengals, but the Broncos are 8.5-point favorites. I mean, like, Harvey and Dobbins combined are going to go for 25 plus points. Both of them have a pretty strong floor and ceiling. I'm fine starting rookie running back RJ Harvey. I was really, really high on Harvey as a prospect. Dobbins is supposedly going to be the lead back, at least the starting back, but I think it's going to be a pretty even split. RJ Harvey reminds me a ton of Bucky Irving, a ton. I just can't get that comparison out of my head. They're not exactly the same. I think Bucky's maybe a slightly better pass catcher than Harvey, but they have the similar level of shiftiness, side to side, just changing directions on a dime. I think they're both going to be really good this season. RJ Harvey is, I think, a fine start here in week 1. Start 2 in flex, Judy, Sutton, Egbuka, Golden, Ford. Yeah, so we're starting Egbuka 100%. And we're starting Judy too. Yeah, it's Egbuka and Judy there. I'm playing Egbuka over like almost everybody. I'm playing Egbuka over Tyreek Hill, even though I had that slightly different in my initial ranks on the live right now, I'm playing Egbuka over everyone except it's easier for me to say who I'm playing over Egbuka than who I'm playing Egbuka over. There's only 11 receivers I'm playing over Emeka Egbuka today. Drake London, Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, Justin Jefferson, Amon Ra, Malik Neighbors, Puka Nacua, Brian Thomas Jr., Mike Evans, T. Higgins, Devontae Adams. End of list. That was 11 guys that I'm playing over Egbuka. That's it. I'm playing him over Tyreek. I'm playing Egbuka over Pearsall, over Judy. And Judy projects really well. Like if you have Judy and Njoku, now's the time, man, to start them. They get the Bengals and they got Flacco starting. Pollard, Diggs, or Tet in a PPR league. I think we might have just been looking at this one. I would start both Pollard and Teddy Mac over Diggs. Diggs is almost 32 years old, coming off an ACL. He's been fully healthy for quite some time, but like I'm okay seeing what the role really looks like out of the gates here before starting him, especially if you have guys like this. Like it's okay to start Diggs if you don't have as good of options like this, like Nick has here with Teddy Mac and Pollard. But yeah, Ted McMillan and Tony Pollard, both really good starts today. I feel the floor for Tony Pollard is just really strong. Like he is really strong. Hey Sam, tuning in again this year from Australia. Let's go, Nikki. Pearsall or Henderson. Yeah, we're not benching Trevion Henderson. If you're just tuning in, we're not benching Trevion Henderson. Let me just go through the must starts really quick. The QBs that are must starts in most situations. You know, it's tough to say a blanket true must start statement because there's so many different leagues out there, but I feel great starting Brock Purdy. I feel great starting Caleb Williams. I feel great starting Drake May. I start all those guys over Bo Nix, for example. I start all those guys over Justin Fields, for example. At running back, we're starting Trevion Henderson. Trevion Henderson can get 20 fantasy points without even getting 15 touches. That is the type of player that he is. He can break off massive plays, but he's also going to be very involved in the pass game. And if he does get 15 plus touches, watch out. Man. I mean, he could easily be a top 10 running back in fantasy. Tony Pollard is just locked into 20 plus touches. How many players can you look at confidently in week one and say, this guy's definitely getting 20 plus touches? Is a pretty short list. And Tony Pollard's on that list with Tajay Spears out. And just like really not that much talent on that offense in general. And they're underdogs. He's going to catch passes. Tony Pollard's like really underrated heading into the season, even before the Spears injury. After the Spears injury, it's an even bigger smash. So yeah, I'm going Pollard over Pearsall. I think I'm going Pollard over Pearsall. Tony, how we doing? We could not be more back, Tony. Let's check this one out. Pearsall and PPR though, man, he projects great too. Oh God, he projects a tiny bit better. Yeah, it's a floor ceiling decision. You can see it really well here. This is another one of my personal favorite pieces of the Walter Picks app is these floor ceiling decisions. Because this really does come down to preference and a little bit of strategy based on the matchup to some extent too. But these decisions in fantasy don't need to be just median projection decisions. Like some of these guys just have a much different range of outcomes than others. And I think the Walter Picks app does just an amazing job helping us visualize and understand and see this. Like again, Tony Pollard, there's just not that many guys you can just say for sure getting 20 plus touches today. And Pollard is one of those guys. So the floor is so high. I mean, the floor of him scoring at least 10 points is over 80% chance that he's scoring at least 10 points. You know, it's closer to 60, 65% chance for Pearsall to do the same. But the ceiling for the receivers is just so much higher often in PPR leagues because, you know, Pearsall could get 10 catches. You know, Pollard's not getting 10 catches. That's 10 points instantly, just off the gates. Usually the running backs have higher touchdown potential at the same time. So it evens out like a little bit there, especially in half PPR and non-PPR formats. But yeah, this is a floor ceiling decision. You know, if you want to just lock in at 10 plus, you go Pollard. If you want a chance at 25 plus, you go Pearsall. And usually my mentality with how I play fantasy and how I approach life is I want the ceiling. You know, I want the upside. That's why I started Walter Picks in the first place. Invested every dollar I had to start the company of Walter Picks five years ago. And it's just the same way I approach fantasy too. It's why I am drafting Trevion Henderson. It's why I have Pearsall on my team. But yeah, I'm going Pearsall personally, but Pollard is the safer play, and they are projected, you know, basically the same amount of points. Yeah, I do feel really good about Pearsall today too. Really, this is a tough one. It's a good one. Some really good tough ones, honestly, in week one. I didn't expect this many tough ones. But this is what happens when you draft good teams too. Sometimes you're like, is a good sign that you got tough start sits. Back again for another year. Want to see your thoughts? Matchups are the concern. 2 leagues I have flex choice. Waymo, JMO, Breece Hall, or Ridley. Yeah, I think I'd rank them in this order. JMO, then Breece, then Ridley. And then Golden or Swift. Yeah, I'm going Swift over Golden. Thanks for all you do, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, the matchup is a little scary for Swift, but the role is like just so locked in for Swift. He's going to catch passes. There's almost no competition. Maybe Monungai steals goal line work. It's possible, but Swift is like, if he's not on the list, just after the list of guys that are pretty locked in for like 20 plus touches. Matt, man, how we doing? Good to see you in the premium Discord channel. If you guys are subscribed to the Walter Picks app, which you absolutely should be, if you're serious about fantasy, if you're in a competitive league, if you're into player props, I mean, there's no reason not to be subscribed to the Walter Picks app if you're actually trying to win. And the other thing that the premium subscription in the app gets you is access to our premium Discord channels, which I'm talking in constantly. Our whole projections team is talking in constantly. All of our super sharp subscribers are talking in constantly. And Matt's in there as well. All right. PPR at running back 1. Henderson, Harvey, Dobbins. Yeah, it's Hendo. Yeah, it's Hendo. It's Trevion Henderson for me. I think the ceiling is higher for Henderson. Both these guys, they all have, I think, somewhat similar floors. Yeah, high ceiling player. You said it too. Yeah, so you make up for the Dak Lamb pick and stack. Yeah, I know you're talking about that in the Discord as well. Yeah, I'm going Hendo there. And like I mentioned this earlier too. I think I said it to someone in Discord earlier as well. I don't hate starting Dobbins and Harvey in certain spots today. Just lock in the 25 plus point floor that they're going to combine for. But definitely a little uncertainty in variance there with a pretty even backfield split that we're projecting. Tuning in since 2021. Wow, man. Ford or Travis Hunter in the flex. Yeah, I mean, this is like the quintessential, like, you got to start Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter versus Jerome Ford. Would I be shocked if Jerome Ford outscores Travis Hunter? No, I wouldn't be shocked. But, man, I mean, Travis Hunter in a known every down wide receiver role in a game that the Jags, I think, are just slightly projected as favorites versus Jerome Ford with Joe Flacco at QB. I mean, a good matchup for sure, but he might not even be the goal line back. Yeah, I mean, Travis Hunter, like, is a smash start in situations like that where you're considering Jerome Ford over him. I think Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr., like, they really could be on that Jamar Chase T. Higgins level. And I don't say that lightly by any means. Let's just do this comparison quick to just see how drastic this difference is. Yeah, not even close. Just across the board, you're starting Travis Hunter over Jerome Ford very easily. Shaheed or Ridley? This is an interesting one. I think this one's definitely going to be really close. Yeah, Shaheed, wow, projects a tiny bit better. This is a tough one here between Rashid Shaheed and Calvin Ridley. I was saying earlier in one of my leagues, I'm choosing between Ridley and Brendan Strange in my flex slot in one of my deeper leagues. So it's just not a good matchup for Ridley. I'm going to go Ridley in that spot, though. Like, I don't want to start tight ends over receivers by any means, but Shaheed projects a bit better here. Better matchup. Obviously, way worse quarterback situation, though. I think Shaheed and Olave, though, talent-wise, like, just a bit underappreciated right now. Shaheed didn't have a bad game last year. I think he actually might have had one bad game. Yeah, he would have had one donut sandwiched in between no bad games. Went for 16, 21, 17.7, 18.6 in 4 of his 5 healthy games last year. That was all with Derek Carr, though. A whole different offensive environment, coaching staff, and QB. But yeah, Shaheed's good, man. I mean, he's been really efficient every time he's played, and all the reports out of camp have been really positive. So I'm okay going Shaheed here and benching Ridley, given the matchup. I'm going RJ Harvey over Jerome Ford. I'm playing McBride over Kraft, yeah, for sure. JMO over Ford. Egbuka versus Hendo is a close one. I probably would go Egbuka there. Montgomery, Sutton, Harvey, Egbuka sit 1. Yeah, you're sitting Harvey or Montgomery here. But it's half PPR, actually. Let's see. This one's actually close. Montgomery definitely gets a decent boost in half PPR. Again, this is part of the reason there's no reason not to try at least the free version or the free trial on the Walter Picks app, which will literally adjust for all your settings, which matter obviously a lot, especially with guys like Montgomery, even RJ Harvey. So yeah, you're definitely starting Egbuka still. And then the question is, who are you starting with the other 3 guys or the other 2 guys between Sutton Oops, I took out the wrong guy. Harvey back in here. Yeah, I think I would just bench Harvey here. You're benching Harvey or Sutton. You're starting Monty. Oh, God. Honestly, I think I might bench Sutton for Harvey, though, given the game environment. Slightly higher ceiling, but better floor for higher ceiling for Sutton, better floor for Harvey. I think I'd bench Sutton here. Tough call, for sure. Tet or Pearsall? Yeah, I'm leaning Pearsall over Tet. Teddy Mack. I feel good about both them, though. Hey, Sam, Jerome Ford or Dobbins? Yeah, it's Dobbins. JSN, Devontae, and Judy. Pick one between those guys. God, I want to pick two or all three between those guys. It's so tough to bench Devontae Adams with Stafford playing. One of the highest chances for a touchdown for sure. Yeah, it's Adams. Then it's JSN. Then it's Judy. Judy and JSN, they actually project for right next to each other. Both projected 14.4 in the ranks. Pull up the running back ranks again. Let me know in the comments too what ranks you guys want to see next. If you guys are just tuning into, let me just talk through the free player props again one more time. Pollard, Pearsall, DJ Moore. Yeah, this order. I ranked them in this order. Pollard, then Pearsall, then DJ Moore. And personally, I'm starting Pearsall over Pollard. We already talked to that one on this live, but they're both really good starts, especially in this one. Greetings from CHS. Wow, man. William, shout out to you. Hey, Sam. Should I start Myers or Travis Hunter PPR? Thank you. Yeah, I think it's got to be. I think it's got to be Hunter here. Yeah. Myers projects a tiny bit better. Oh, this is half PPR. Let me switch back to PPR. I'm going Hunter over Myers. Yep. Myers projects a tiny bit better in the app right now. I'm going Hunter though. I think a way higher ceiling for Hunter. The Pats Raiders game is also going to have some rain. I don't want to overreact. I'm not overly concerned, but yeah, I'm going Hunter. Breece Hall or Jalen Warren. I'm going Jame over Dobbins in a PPR league. I'm playing Breece Hall over Jalen Warren. Kraft or Loveland? It's Kraft. It's Kraft by like a lot. It's Kraft by a lot. Loveland is not a guy, especially in that type of spot, that I want to start if I have other good options. Let me go to the tight ends again. Pull up the tight end ranks here. Let's just refresh the news feed here, see if any news has come out. We're about hitting 90 minutes to game time now. Should get some of the reports soon, very soon. In the 49ers, they play later in the game. Christian McCaffrey will play in week 1. Good to go. Love to see it. We've already done our prayer for Christian McCaffrey's calf. I did my prayer first thing in the morning. Hopefully you guys have all gotten it in. But we are praying for the McCaff. Sam, it's finally here, the first Sunday of the year. It is the best day of the week, man. The best day of the week is officially back. Hunter Henry, Brenton Strange, Kate Otten, yeah, Yarshma. It's Brenton Strange season. We're starting Brenton Strange here. Kate Otten, I think, projects a tiny bit better. I'm starting Strange over Kate Otten. I think he's got a better chance at a touchdown. Really excited about the ceiling here for Strange, the game environment here for Strange, the matchup for Strange. Talked about it earlier. He's one of the free player props of the day as well on the live. In the games where he had at least 3 catches last year, which we're projecting him for 3.8 catches today, which honestly I think is like on the more pessimistic side of his projection. Brenton Strange averaged over 50 yards per game in those games with at least 3 catches. 6 of those games last year for Strange. His line's at 28.5. So yeah, he's one of the free player props. Nico Collins and Odunze over receptions I like a lot. And Corey Krosky-Merritt under 33.5 rush yards I like as well. Yeah, I'm starting Strange over Otten. I'm starting Strange over Evan Ingram. I'm starting over Kyle Pitts, Kincaid, and Hunter Henry, and Zach Ertz, and Loveland as well. Igbuka, Cook, or Henderson start 2. Yeah, I think I'm going Igbuka and Henderson here and benching Cook. It's a tough call. definitely a tough one. I want to start guys in that Ravens-Bills game, but they spread the ball around so much. I feel safer with Hendo and with Egbuka. Week 1 is arguably up there with Christmas Day. Not arguably, man. It is. It is our version of Christmas Day as NFL fans. With that being said, Egbuka, Harvey, Pearsall, McMillan, DJ Moore. Yeah, it's Egbuka and Pearsall. Egbuka and Pearsall over McMillan, DJ Moore, Harvey. All these are really good options. This is a good situation to be in. I think the first Cooper Kupp question, Dom, that I've seen. We have not gotten very many Cooper Kupp questions. Kind of surprising, honestly. But yeah, it's Waddle. It's Waddle versus Harvey here over Kupp. I think I'd probably go Waddle. But let's take a look. Yeah, it's Waddle. It's Waddle for me. Over Cooper Kupp, over RJ Harvey. Zay or Judy? God, I don't want to bench Judy at all. I think you've got to go Judy over Zay. They are both in pretty good environments today. Zay playing tonight against the Bills. Judy playing very shortly here against the Bengals. But yeah, I mean, this is probably the single best situation that we'll have heading into a game this season for Judy and Njoku. Just a lock to be up against a horrible defense and the best QB situation that he can have on his own team. Go back to the QB rank, see someone asking for that. With Joe Flacco starting. So yeah, you want to start Njoku and Judy, today of all days, I think. And every year, there's a lot of changes in how good defenses are across the NFL. I think people really overrate their ability to know which defenses are actually good or bad heading into a season because it always changes a ton. And last year's defensive numbers are usually very influenced by injuries. But we know the Bengals defense is bad. I mean, it's one of the few defenses that we can just know is bad heading into the season. They were really, really bad last year. They added basically nobody, and they had basically no injuries last year either. Not none, but it wasn't injuries last year for the Bengals of why they were bad. So yeah, they're going to continue to be bad. Start Debo or Dobbins? Yeah, Dobbins for me, I think, over Debo. Pittman or Ridley? That one's pretty close, honestly. I think it's probably Pittman. Yeah, it's probably Pittman over Ridley. I'm going Egbuka over Waddle. I'm playing Egbuka over JSN and Judy. Judy versus JSN is a close one. I'm pretty high on all these guys today. Yeah, we have Judy and JSN back-to-back. We have all three of these receivers projected as top 16 wide receivers. We really got to start all three of them. I'm playing Warren over Loveland pretty easily. I really want to bench Loveland if I can. I'm very high on his ceiling this season, but sketched about him today. And just I think more risk than you need to take on with Loveland. Yeah, I do still do my must starts. I got them up on TikTok right now. My must start QBs: Brock Purdy, Caleb Williams, Drake May. My must start running backs: Tony Pollard, Trevion Henderson, J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey. My must start receivers: Drake London, Emeka Egbuka, Travis Hunter, Ricky Pearsall. I like Roma Dunze, and I do think this is a good week for Matthew Golden as well. At tight end, you're starting Njoku. Njoku was the tight end 4 in points per game last year. He was getting drafted as the tight end 8 or 9 or 10 in drafts. Made no sense. And with Joe Flacco starting, that's good for Njoku. A matchup against the Bengals, that's good for Njoku as well. I mean, you got to start him with a ton of confidence. Tyler Warren is a must start right out of the gates. I mean, there's very few tight ends that you can just that you can start with confidence in their rookie season in their first game, and Tyler Warren's on the list for sure. He's probably going to lead the Colts in receiving this season. And if he doesn't, it's going to be Josh Downs. He's going to be a PPR merchant with Daniel Jones, a better version of Wandale. Hey, Sam, been tuning in since 21. Happy week 1. Yeah, if you guys have been tuning in for any amount of time, a true OG here with Sam, you know that nothing quite hits for me like week 1, man. Such a great time of the year. Super pumped again for this season. Yeah, Garrett Wilson versus Jacoby, happy PR. I think it's probably, pull up the receiver rankings here again. I think it's Jacoby over Garrett Wilson. Really not a good first week situation for Garrett Wilson. A game that's going to have some rain. It has the lowest projected over-under of the week. Yeah, it's half PPR though. It honestly might change it a little bit. I feel like they have somewhat similar touchdown odds. Yeah, it's really, really close. It's close. I think I'd go Jacoby, though. Jefferson. Did I just see a Justin Jefferson question? Jefferson, Zay, Dunze, pick 2. Like, this is not a pick 2. It's not a pick 2. It's a pick 1. You're starting Jefferson, who has the all-time most receiving yards per game in NFL history. He's matchup proof. He's quarterback proof. He's everything proof. I'm playing Zay over Dunze. I actually like Dunze a lot. He's on my must-start list, but I'm playing Zay over him in that game environment. Jacoby or Downs? Yeah, I'm going Jacoby there. I do like Downs a lot, but Jacoby's got the better QB situation. I think the better projected role. It's really like I like Downs a lot. I think he's a very underrated slot receiver. I think he's going to be an upgrade to like a Wan'Dale plus type situation, which I think is actually pretty exciting for PPR. Like he's Wan'Dale, but he could actually maybe have spike weeks, like big ceiling games and score. But he still has Daniel Jones at QB. What's up, Sam? So hyped to be back. I am also so hyped to be back. Full PPR right now between Pearsall and Henderson and Flex. Yeah, these are two of my must starts here in week 1. I don't think you can go wrong here between Hendo and Pearsall. I think Pearsall is probably honestly a little safer. Yeah, it's Pearsall over Trevor and Henderson. Harvey or Jennings at the flex. If this is PPR, it's a pretty close call here too. Harvey is actually a pretty safe bet. Him and Dobbins, like at least one of these guys is going to have a good game. They're 8.5-point favorites. Yeah, Juwan Jennings. I actually think Juwan Jennings is like a kind of sneaky here in week 1. Not like, is he that much different really of potential compared to Pearsall? Like I'm more nervous about him because he barely practiced this whole preseason. But it wouldn't be shocking to see Jennings outscore Pearsall. So yeah, I think I would go Jennings. Harvey's floor is safer though. Yeah, just same thing we're seeing on screen right now on the YouTube live. If you guys are tuned in, by the way, on TikTok, smash the follow button, hit the like button. Helps me out a ton. And if you want to guarantee that your start sit gets answered, there's two things you can do moving forward to guarantee you're going to get every start sit question answered on these lives. One is doing the TikTok live subscription, because I'll go to TikTok live comment only mode at the end of the stream and I'll get to all the TikTok live subscriber comments. The other thing to do is subscribe in the Walter Picks app, because one, you won't even need to ask the question on the live because you'll have the premium version of the Walter Picks app, which gives you the best possible start sit analysis you can find. But also you'll have access to me and the rest of the Walter Picks team in our premium Discord channels. And you'll get your start sit answered before the live stream if you're in there. Harvey or Jennings. But I'll also do my best to answer all the start sits I can get to. We've already got to hundreds on this live. And Sam, we trust. Should I play Booker or JMO? Yeah, I don't think the extension changes JMO's projection today. Did not move the projection. But I think it was a good move for the Lions. Obviously great for Waymo JMO. But yeah, you're starting Egbuka here in week 1. There's no benching Emeka Egbuka here in week 1. It's really not. Waddle, Aaron Jones, or Judy? Yeah, I think that one's Judy. Harvey or Jennings? Yeah, we just talked about that. I think it's Jennings and PPR. This is my 5th year here. Flicky, I definitely recognize the name. Appreciate you tuning in for another season. Seriously, means a ton. Sutton, JSN, Henderson, and Egbuka sit 1. Yeah, you're sitting Sutton. You're sitting Sutton. And I think I'd go May over Nix today. I'd go Drake May over Bo Nix. Sutton or DeAndre Swift or Jennings for flex. This one honestly might be Swift. Let's take a look at this one. Sutton versus Jennings is close as well. I think I probably would lean Sutton there. But Swift projects really well given the situation. Yeah, wow, Jennings projects a little bit better than Sutton. I think I'd probably go Sutton over Jennings. I think the game environment's probably a little bit better for Jennings. Both these games actually projected to have some rain too, but yeah, I think I lean Sutton in this spot. Jennings projects a bit better. I'm going Waddle over Jaylen Warren. Consider me like a little skeptical about Jaylen Warren, who's supposedly going to be a featured back, but I think Kenneth Gainwell and Caleb Johnson will mix in on a pretty low-scoring offense. Golden, Swift, or JMO, yeah, that one's definitely JMO. Happy week 1, year 4, Daniel. Pick 2, DK, Waddle, Swift, Jacoby Downs in a PPR league. This one's pretty close too. I definitely think you got to start Waddle here. I'm starting Jacoby over TK. Yeah, it's Jacoby and Swift. Let's do Jacoby. Let's put Metcalf here for Waddle. I think it's Waddle and Jacoby. Yeah. I wouldn't knock you for starting Swift over Myers. I wouldn't knock you for starting Metcalf over him either. But yeah, personally, I'm going Waddle and Jacoby Myers there. DJ Moore, Pearsall, it's Pearsall. Yeah, we're starting Pearsall. We're starting Waddle over Jacoby. I'm playing Pitts over Loveland. I'm starting Kyle Pitts over Loveland. Rest of season, I think Loveland has a higher ceiling, especially if Mooney's out, though. I still don't think we've gotten the official report yet. Yeah, the only official report really we've gotten, it actually should come out like very, very soon, like in the next couple of minutes, I believe. Chris Rodriguez is inactive for week 1. No. The Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt prop takes a big dive. Wow. That's very, very surprising to me. That Chris Rodriguez, who I thought was the primary goal line back in the projected short yardage back for the Commanders, he's out. That is definitely big for Bill Krosky-Merritt. It's big for Jeremy McNichols and Austin Eckler as well. Patriots left tackle Will Campbell is active. Some report that Chris Godwin's target return is week 5. The injury news is hitting. The official actives and inactives for this early window is hitting. Healthy scratch. I thought that Bill Krosky-Merritt might be a healthy scratch. Ends up being Chris Rodriguez as the healthy scratch. Definitely going to move the projection here for Bill. And I don't recommend the free player prop anymore, even though I still think he's probably overhyped. You know, this is definitely an L, an early leading indicator of an L here for fading Bill Krosky-Merritt, who was one of the free player props of the day for me, under 33.5 yards. I still think his total yards, though, is interesting. I don't think he's going to catch any passes. Dobbins or Brees. Walter has them 19 and 22. Yeah, I'd go Dobbins over Brees. I'd go JMO over Jennings too. Yeah. Dobbins over Brees, JMO over Jennings. Can we see running backs? Yeah, I got you with the running backs. See any other news? I think that Falcons game's in the early window, if I recall. Yeah, it is. Should get this Darnell Mooney news very, very shortly. Inactive. Darnell Mooney inactive for week 1, as we were already projecting. And that locked in Drake London as our wide receiver 1 on the week. The wide receiver 1, projecting over Jamar Chase. Diggs or Dobbins, half PPR. Yeah, you got to lean towards the running back since half PPR. And I think even in PPR, I'd probably go Dobbins over Diggs. In half PPR, it's an even easier choice, though. Waddle or Marvin Harrison Jr., last flex spot, full PPR. Yeah, definitely a close one here. I think it's probably Marv. Yeah, it's pretty close, but yeah, it's Marv. I'd go Marv. Diggs or Dobbins. Yeah, we already got to that one. Eckler or Harvey. Yeah, it's Harvey over Eckler. Who's the goal line back for the Commanders without Chris Rodriguez in the lineup? Is it Austin Eckler? Or is it Bill Krosky-Merritt? Or is it Jaden Daniels or Deebo Samuel? Or Jeremy McNichols? There's still a lot of guys in the backfield, but man, that definitely, I think, clears things up a bit. Yeah, I'm going Sutton over Myers personally. It's definitely close though. Pollard, Golden, Sutton. It's Pollard. Yeah, it's Pollard over Sutton. It's Pollard over Golden. Harvey or Montgomery. That one's actually pretty close too. I think they're like back to back here in the ranks. Yeah, they are. I would go Harvey over Montgomery, but it's super close. Happy fantasy football season to you as well, Jack. Happy fantasy football season. Happy NFL season to all of you, man. What a time. What a amazing, amazing time. Jalen Warner, Austin Eckler with this news. Half PPR. Yeah, we got to take a second for the app to update here with the latest projections, but I still probably lean Jalen Warren. Like, I'm not convinced Eckler's going to be the goal line back. I really think JCM benefits the most from this Chris Rodriguez benching. Again, really like surprising here that he's a healthy scratch. Before the news, it wasn't very close. Yeah, I think it's still Warren. Excited for week 1. Me too, Charles. Choose one at the flex. Sutton, Pearsall. Yeah, it's Pearsall over Marvin Harrison Jr. It's Pearsall over Sutton. I'm playing Pearsall over DK Metcalf as well. Bryce Young versus Trevor Lawrence is a very interesting one. I personally going Trevor Lawrence over Bryce Young. Same game here. Same game. Yeah, I'm going Trevor Lawrence, the guy with easily the better wide receiver duo than Bryce. Definitely close though. RJ Harvey versus Jacoby Myers in the flex and a full PPR. Yeah, that one's pretty close too. I'd probably lean Jacoby Myers there. See the wide receivers. Yep, I got you with the receiver rankings. We are about an hour-ish away now from kickoff. Does the weather in New England impact things? Yeah, so Weatherman Sam's here. He's going to be here for you all season. And there's going to be rain throughout the Patriots-Raiders game. I'm not overly concerned, but it's going to have some impact. And the reason I'm not overly concerned is the reports that I have seen suggest that the rain's actually at its worst right now in leading up to the game. It's going to get a little bit better during the game. There might be even some pockets in the game with no rain. There's going to be a lot of rain, though, across the NFL. There's going to be some light scattered rain in the Jets-Steelers game, which was already going to be a gross game, Panthers-Jags game, Titans-Broncos game, 49ers-Seahawks game. I'm not as concerned about those games as I am the Pats-Raiders, which is supposed to have the most rain. But just in general, like, I'm not that concerned. I've done a lot of statistical research on weather in the NFL, and wind over 25 miles an hour is really the only thing to ever really get scared about and move projections significantly forward. These guys can play through rain and cold and snow. It's just super hard to throw when it's windy, and there's not that much wind today. No reason to be concerned about wind. Zach, how we doing, man? Myers, Ridley, Waddle, PPR. Yeah, I think I'd rank these guys as Waddle, then Myers, then Ridley. And I do have a DFS lineup, a pretty unique one today. And honestly, I think it looks maybe even a little bit better with this news about Chris Rodriguez not being active, a healthy scratch for the Commanders. And maybe that means slightly more rushing touchdown upside for Mr. Jaden Daniels, who's to me, the one quarterback. If it's not Jalen Hurts, and I think even more likely than Jalen Hurts, that could actually beat Lamar or Josh Allen in terms of fantasy this season. It's Jaden Daniels, the guy literally built in a lab for fantasy football. So I'm going with an unstacked Daniels in my DK lineup today. And with how many mispriced guys there are on this opening slate, I'm playing our top 2 wide receivers in our rankings, both London and Jamar Chase, with 2 rookie running backs in Genti and Henderson, as I just continue to make bets on this rookie running back class. Egbuka's probably the most mispriced player on the slate, going to be extremely highly owned, but I don't think a guy you want to fade. I'm going with Brenton Strange, my favorite sleeper tight end heading into the season, and I think he'll get off to a good start right away. Also one of my free player props. Over 28.5 receiving yards for Strange, I like a lot. Golden, Pollard, or DJ Moore? Yeah, it's Pollard. It's Pollard. Let me go to the QB ranks, see some QB questions here. Refresh the news feed here as well. Raiders running back Raheem Mostert is inactive. Jets wide receiver Alan Lazard is inactive. Giants left tackle Andrew Thomas is inactive. Report says Nick Chubb expected to serve as bell cow running back in week 1. Well, what does it mean to be a bell cow running back on a team that can't run? They have no offensive line. 8 carries, 9 carries for Nick Chubb. I mean, I will believe the bell cow narrative for Nick Chubb when I see it. Definitely. I don't think I've seen a single start to question about Chubb. Maybe we'll get some now on this report. Darnell Mooney is out as well. That's why Drake London projects as our wide receiver 1. JMO or Chuba, Hubbard, flex, PPR. I'd probably go Jameson Williams here over Chuba. I'm playing Emeka Egbuka over Sutton. I'm playing Caleb over Drake, but it's close. I have them both as must starts. I'm playing Trevion Henderson over Diggs. I'm playing Brenton Strange over Evan Ingram. Yeah, I'm doing that. Kyler Murray or Caleb Williams. I think this one's Caleb. Yep. It's close, though. Definitely really close. But yeah, I'm going Caleb. I'm very, very much in on the Bears offense this season. Why do we have Warren over Montgomery? Can you explain that? Yeah, I mean, a much less exciting game, but a better projected role for Jaylen Warren than Montgomery. This is also PPR projections, point per reception projections, which should benefit Jaylen Warren a decent amount. You know, Jaylen Warren will most likely catch more passes than David Montgomery. Yeah, it's close. I think Monty has a better chance at a touchdown, but Warren has a better chance at more touches, more catches than Montgomery, which is why he projects just a bit ahead. Pick 2, Henderson, Cook, Pearsall. Henderson versus Cook is like a really tough one. And I think I lean Henderson over Cook. I could definitely see an argument the other way. And I'm probably starting Pearsall over both these guys in a PPR league. Yeah, I am. Yeah. For me, it's Henderson and Pearsall. Just locking in the ceiling. James Cook has a really high ceiling too, but projects just a little bit worse on a team that spreads the ball around a ton. If you wanted to play it safe and sit the rookie, I'd be fine with that too and go James Cook over Henderson. I think that's reasonable. It's a reasonable decision to make. Here we go, Sean. These are the start sit questions that get me up in the morning, Sean. The Alec Pierce versus Imanor versus Pitts questions, man. This is legit league here. This is the type of league too. Like if you're in a league like this, where you got to make these types of start sit decisions in week 1, man, you got to get the Walter Picks app. I mean, there's no leagues where the app is more powerful than leagues like this, where you're just scraping the bottom of the barrel every week. But if you can scrape it correctly, like a massive difference in these leagues. The app is free. It's a free app, Sean. And there's a free 7-day trial for the premium features in the app as well. But even the free features without the free trial will help in these types of leagues. And yeah, it's Pitts. It's Pitts over Alec Pierce. You can't start Alec Pierce, man. You can't really start Imanor either. I feel like he's actually a little bit more exciting than Pierce. I know Pierce had some big games last year, but with Daniel Jones starting and Tyler Warren in the mix and Adonai Mitchell in year 2, he could easily score 0 points. Same thing with Imanor. Darnell Mooney out too is definitely good for Kyle Pitts. So yeah, it's Kyle Pitts there. Pearsall or Pollard? Yeah, all the rest of you guys in normal leagues feel good that you don't need to start Kyle Pitts in the flex in week 1. I think I talked about this one earlier already. Yeah, Pollard, I did. Pollard and Pearsall, they project the exact same amount. This is a floor ceiling decision. Pollard's the safer floor, Pearsall the higher ceiling. I lean the higher ceiling. I go Pearsall. I'm playing Egbuka over JSN. It feels weird, but I think it's right. Godwin was the wide receiver 2 in points per game last year. Playing the slot role for the Bucs, that same role that Egbuka is playing right here in week 1. Egbuka is a pro-ready slot receiver as a rookie in his first game. Judy, Waddle, or K9 at the flex. I think it's Judy. I think it's Judy here. I don't think this is the first Kenneth Walker question I think we've gotten. Yeah, it's Judy. It's Judy over these guys. You got Judy starting with Flacco. You got Judy with Flacco starting against the Bengals defense. It's just it's a tough situation to bench. I think I would go Downs over Shakir. Not trying to skip, trying to get to as many as I possibly can. I'm going Strange over Loveland. Yep. Pull up the tight end ranks here again. I think that the Strange Loveland pairing, I think, is a fantastic draft strategy in fantasy this season. I've got a couple of those situations myself. And yeah, I am starting Strange in multiple leagues, multiple high stakes fantasy leagues that I am in. I'm starting Brenton Strange today. I'm in on his receiving yards prop as well. Jennings or Pollard? It's Pollard. Yeah, Pollard is a really, really good bet today. Diggs or Sutton? I'd go Sutton. I'm playing Tyler Warren over Evan Ingram. I'm playing Brenton Strange over Evan Ingram. Sutton, Swift, Debo, full PPR. Yeah, it's these first two. I think I'd start these first two over Debo. Definitely a really, really high ceiling for Debo, given the type of role that he could play. I honestly think Chris Rodriguez being out is good news for him as well, since he projects for some of the rushing work on this team. Yeah, I think I ranked them in this order still. Let me actually refresh the Walter Picks app to get the updated projections here. Refresh the news as well. I don't think anything else has come in. Xavier Hutchinson projected to get starter snaps today over Jalen Noel, over Jaden Higgins. For the Texans, Jimmy Horn Jr. is inactive for the Panthers, if you know who that is. Shout out to you, rookie receiver for the Panthers. Does not look updated yet. I'm still pretty skeptical about JCM, but I definitely like him a lot more, Nikki, now. I definitely like him a lot more. But my personal favorite play, though, on him is just under total yards, under receiving. It's still going to be a crowded backfield. There's still Eckler's still the odds-on favorite to lead the backfield in snaps. Jaden Daniels will obviously still rushing work. Debo, I think, will get at least a couple of carries as well. And then you got Jeremy McNichols mixing in still too. I think McNichols is more of the direct backup, though, to Eckler. And JCM is going to be the main primary ball carrier running back. Now, Weatherman Sam's not really that worried today, but there is weather to be aware of. And Weatherman Sam, he's got you covered. The Patriots-Raiders game is the most concerning weather game of the day. There's going to be consistent rain throughout that game. And it's downpouring rain there right now. There's going to be some scattered rain throughout the league with the Jets, Steelers, the Panthers, Jags, Titans, Broncos, 49ers, Seahawks. Just overall, though, I'm not that concerned. It's really not moving too much for me at this point. There's no wind. Wind is the most concerning thing when it comes to projecting NFL impact with weather. But don't be surprised when you see some rain across the league today. Full PPR start 3, Waddle, Zay, Warren, Eckler, Strange. Yeah, so you're starting Waddle and Zay here. If that's Jalen Warren, I think you probably go Jalen Warren there, Noah. Tyler Warren, honestly, maybe too. I'm not playing Strange over Eckler, I don't think, no. Baker Mayfield versus Drake May. I'd be fine. I'd be fine letting that Austin push you to Baker. I mean, that's a really, really close one anyways. They project 0.2 points apart. Part of the reason that I like to try to like show the projection too, not just the ranking. The rankings can be really misleading if you aren't seeing the actual projection behind the rankings. Like these guys are basically ranked the exact same, projected the exact same. May has definitely a lot more rushing touchdown potential than Mayfield, but really good game environment in a dome for Baker Mayfield. I'm fine riding with Baker over May with the rain. I think that's a totally reasonable decision. I still think starting May is fine here too. It's really, really close still. And yes, all the Walter picks out projections, all the rankings here, they are accounting already for the weather. Weatherman Sam's on it for the Walter picks out. What's up, Sam? Excited for week one. Me too, man. Choose one at flex. Sutton, Pearsall, Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah, it's Pearsall, man. It's Pearsall. Hi, Walter. Classic mistake. My name is Sam. Walter is the machine learning model that helps power the projections in the Walter Picks app. Classic mistake, man. Do not worry about it. Pittman, Coleman, or Jordan Mason in a PPR league. Yeah, this one's got to be Pittman. Ridley or Chubb. God, with that report, we finally got a Nick Chubb question with the report that he's going to be a workhorse. I'm okay going. I'm okay going Chubb, I think, with the report. It's pretty gross, man. Bryce Young or Lawrence? Yeah, Matt, I lean Trevor Lawrence over Bryce. It's definitely really, really close. Who's your favorite TD play for today? Probably Christian McCaffrey, Nikki, now that he's playing. He's probably at like minus 110. I do like that. I also do like I also do kind of like the RJ Harvey play. He probably has slightly better odds. Cup or Diggs? This is a pretty close one. I think I lean towards. Yeah, it's Diggs over Cup. Even with the rain. Show running backs. Yeah, I got you. Ford, Garrett Wilson, or Jacoby Myers. Pick two. Half PPR. Half PPR, I feel like makes this a lot closer. Full PPR, I think it's a lot more straightforward. Let's get to this. Let's see. I still think you're starting Jacoby. Yeah, you're still benching Jerome Ford. You can't start Caleb Johnson. Let me run through the must benches again real quick before we wrap up the YouTube live here and the live stream in general. Yeah, YouTube live, by the way. If I didn't get your starts yet, I will be in the Discord in the hour or so leading up to kickoff, answering questions there. Got time for still a few more, though. But yeah, the must benches for me this week. I don't want to start Justin Fields in a rainy game, in a projected really, really low scoring game against a defense that just knows Justin Fields very well. I'd prefer not to start Geno Smith this week either. I'd rather start Daniel Jones than both those guys for context. Caleb Johnson, Bashaw Tutin, Ja'Cory, Krosky, Merritt are not guys that I want to start. Even with Chris Rodriguez out, I think you can find better starts than JCM. Darnell Mooney, he's out. Calvin Ridley, Jaden Reed, not guys I want to start this week at all. I've seen someone ask for the running back ranks. Let me hop to those in a second. Colston Loveland, Jonnu Smith, not tight ends to trust here in week one. I think both guys have a sneaky ceiling, especially Loveland, but not guys you want to start here in week one. Pull up the wide receiver rankings. I'll go to the running back rankings next. I'll go Tracy over Ridley. Yeah, the Xavier Worthy stuff was brutal. Absolutely brutal. Tet McMillan, Sutton, Garrett Wilson. I'd rank them in this order. I go Teddy Mack, then Sutton, then Garrett Wilson. We're playing Travis Hunter over DK Metcalf like very easily. Very, very easily. Weatherman Sam's got you covered. There's a bunch of rain across the league. The Patriots-Raiders game has the worst rain of the day. But don't be that scared about rain. These guys can play through rain. Done a lot of analysis on this. And I'm not worried about the rain really impacting like too much. If you got really close decisions, I'm fine leaning away from the rainy games, though. Why is Strange a must start? Because he's had at least 3 catches in 6 games in his career. He went averaged 50 yards per game in those games, had at least 9.5 PPR points in all 6 of those games. We got him projected for 3.5 catches today. I think that's probably on the lower end of the potential outcomes here for Brenton Strange. So yeah, I think he's a good sleeper tight end if you went late tight end this year. Or if you took Colson Loveland. Harvey or Ford? Yeah, it's hard. Golden or Tracy, half PPR? It's probably Tracy. Waddle, Mims, Harvey, and Flex. Yeah, I think PPR, it's Waddle, and half PPR, it's Harvey. Haven't seen a lot of Marvin Mims questions, but I am very excited to see what he could do in an every down role if he actually gets the every down role. Freddie, thanks for resubscribing. Projections should be fully updated. Let's take a look. If you guys haven't seen this home screen yet, it's coming soon to the Walter Picks app near you. Hunter or Strange and Flex. Yeah, we're going to Travis Hunter there for sure. Okay, yeah, we are updated. Take a look at the computer's losing battery here. JCM definitely a little bit better of a projection. Walter Picks app, always updating super fast for all the news. I'm still pretty skeptical about JCM, though. Definitely still skeptical. And we already locked in the free player prop under 33.5 yards for JCM as well. So gonna stick with that for the record keeping, at least, even though I don't really recommend it at this point. I assume the line probably moved, though, a bit too. YouTube Live. That is my time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Time is the most valuable thing we have. Thank you for spending some time with me today. I'll be in the Discord. Link to that is in the YouTube description. If I didn't get to your start sit, I'll do my best to get to it there. Enjoy week 1. The best day of the week is back Sunday mornings. The Walter Picks app can also help you if I didn't get to your start sit. It is the best tool for start sit decisions. And we got a free 7-day trial going on in the app right now as well. We could not be more back. Guys, have a great Sunday. I'll see you all super soon. And thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future lives. Have a good one, everybody.